Good evening, model railroaders, and welcome back to the Second Section podcast, where it's just regular folks talking about model railroading. I'm your host, Andy Dorsch, and joining me in the studio this evening is my co-host and Packer season ticket provider, Mike Ostertag. Mike, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
Still coming down after the Packer game. Anytime you go
That was
to
fun.
Lambeau Field, it's an experience, that's for sure. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that
it was
was
good.
fun. I was glad we were able to get that done finally. We've been kind of working on it for a little while, and it was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, my son had just a blast. He's been talking about it constantly. He's been asking me to watch football on TV anytime we get a little bit of downtime. So
That's awesome.
yeah, and last night in practice, he was at football practice. He was all knobs on 10. So it was
Oh
great.
boy,
It was great. So how you been?
good.
Good?
Hanging in there. Had vacation last week. Went to
Yeah.
Tennessee and brought back way too much of the extracurricular drinks, but we'll get through them. We got a winner's worth. Let me just put it to you this way.
So is it whiskey? Is it beer or cider? What'd you all get when you were down in the?
We got a couple of cider. We got some blackberry whiskey, salted caramel whiskey, and I think 6 jars of moonshine. Yeah,
that is a lot of moonshine.
it's gonna be a fun winter.
You guys will stay warm, that's for sure.
Right?
For sure.
And it'll be, a lot cheaper than going out. So
they're right. Them taverns, they'll soak you. That's for sure.
Trust me. Tell me about it.
So we got an awesome show lined up this evening, coming to us from the headquarters of the Michigan Interstate is world headquarters is Greg McComas. Greg, welcome back to the Second Section.
I'm interrupting because he's already doing it already. He's starting already. This is Denver all over again. This is exactly what this is.
It's the same shirt from Denver.
I was gonna say, did you even change your clothes in the last few months?
No.
Did your phone blow up there, Andy? Just now?
No, it didn't.
Mine sure did.
How's this?
Oh man. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. He's just the Michigan Interstate is going to be the freelance version of the Orange Borg. That's what it is. It's going to be the freelance version of Genesee and Wyoming. That's exactly what it's going to end up being. It'll be a lot cooler though. At least you'll have different
tone.
Yeah, you'll have different colors. Well,
so welcome back, Greg.
Hi, Greg. How's it going?
How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk about the Michigan Interstate and some of its expansion. Of course, probably a little bit of MACRail in there as well. They all inspire one to the other. So yeah.
So let's touch on that. So we're freelance railroader, right? Or model railroader, right? Freelance model railroader. And then over here, you also have a model railroad business. So let's make sure to touch on that this evening, for sure. And then, because I've been eyeballing your website pretty hard today. And there are a lot of cool things on it, so I think I want to make sure that gets out and about for sure. But yeah, let's go back. Let's go back to the Michigan Interstate, and we'll start there and kind of work our way through it. So, how did it all? Or I guess why don't you just tell us about your model railroad and what you got going on there?
Yeah, sure. So the current Michigan Interstate was formed or was designed and built and started in 2012. And so it's been, over 12 years since I've had it double deck. And before this, I had a couple of different iterations, had a single deck, had one in high school at my parents' house, it's pseudo in a train room. Right. So, and then even when I was in my career, kind of moving around with transportation, I had a small shelf layout in my apartment, right? So I always tried to
Okay.
stay modeling, whether it was a room or L-shaped, just keep staying into the practice, right? And taking that little bit of time to get away from the reality of the world to do some model train work. So, but this, the Michigan Interstate itself kind of goes back to about the year 2000. So I was in high
Oh,
school. Yeah, so I mean, really, because of freelance, I grew up with the MRNT, the VNO, the Ohio Southern, right? Really, kind of those
yeah.
were, and the Utah Belt, right? Those were all
Oh,
great.
yeah.
You read cover to cover on the magazines with that stuff, and so growing up in Michigan, I saw Michigan railroads kind of fall in hard times, and just a lot of great lines were rationalized, were abandoned. And so, traveling up to northern Michigan for the weekend at the lake, you get exposure to a lot of these railroads and seeing the
Sure.
changes over the years. So this was my way. Michigan Interstate was really my way to kind of rewrite the Michigan's railroad history to be a little bit more pro growth, or kind of like what Wisconsin did, where they purchased a lot of the rail lines. And of course, they had operators, they rail banked them. So they didn't just rip them up, they try to
Mm,
keep them, right? So a little bit more of a little bit different. The Michigan Interstate kind of plays off of that. There's also a bigger backstory that goes back to the, really, I guess, say ultra freelance, if you will. I mean, going back to like the 1900s, right? So as railroads were coming across or 1800s were coming across the United States into Michigan, going back that far, even creating that storyline behind the scenes of how all these pieces and parts of different lines came together and coalesced in 1985 to become really the Michigan Interstate.
mm.
And it's from a timeline perspective. And then you're really bringing it from paper to pen in around the year 2000. Getting the first 3 locomotives. It was Athearn Blue Box. 3 GP38s that got super detailed, painted. Rail Graphics did my first Michigan Interstate logo. I attribute them to really being helpful in the freelance back then, because we didn't have Matt back then.
Right.
Circuit City, right? So Rail Graphics is where you went for that custom decal work, and so that's really where it
Sure.
all kicked off. And remember, those engines costing back then $150 to be done by
Oh, my
by a
goodness.
by a painter in Michigan named Fred Fogelsinger, who painted for over a decade. A lot of my equipment, and the yard is actually named after him. So it really started there, and kind of just progressed and progressed and progressed. Went on holes in college and moving around, but really that kept working on the storyline and even just having the modeling, and then come here to the house we live in now. I had a layout, didn't really like it, took it down. And in
Sure.
2012, really got serious about this double deck you see behind me. You can kind of see
Yeah.
the helix. I'm sitting behind me, the helix and the 2 levels. And it's in an 11 by 12 room. It is a shelf layout. There's nothing touching the floor. And it's a lot of serious railroading, really, in 11 by 12 through the use of view blocks, curves, and coves to really make you think you're going
Oh,
further. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
this is a interesting concept. So this is a double decked shelf layout in a room,
Correct.
11 by 12. That's
11 by 12.
that is crazy. So
Mhm.
there's a lot to unpack here. So I want
Yeah.
to I want to go back to the Michigan piece. So did you grow up in the Mitten or in the UP?
So I'd say right here in my hand, right? But I grew up in the
Yeah.
Detroit area. So
Okay.
I grew up just north of Metro Airport. So, I lived my next door neighbor, her son was the BLE representative for Conrail. My friend's dad was a Conrail police officer. So I grew up in the Conrail era, the chassis, the CSX, and of course the Grand Trunk Noodle was surrounded by that. Going downriver, down toward like Woodhaven and Flat Rock, Grand Trunk. Back then, even though I was already CN, still very much Grand Trunk blue and red everywhere you went. So that really was an imprint on me. And of course, the Michigan Interstate's color scheme has if you would say, basically a Grand Trunk thematic to it.
Really? Okay.
In its style. Yeah, because really if you look at the faces, right? So the face is yellow and the rear end, or the rear of the locomotive, is yellow. And of course your hood and the hood and cab are blue. It basically follows the Grand Trunk scheme, just
Yeah.
different colors. And of course, the font and lettering is all different. But to me, that was a really inspiring scheme, and so that's the one I took. Yep.
So now the puzzle pieces are starting to come together, because I was, so I've been following your model railroad for a long time, and I've been just racking my brain trying to figure out, where did he come up with that paint scheme? And I'll be darned, it's the GT.
It's a GT.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a GT scheme, and if you look at the layout of the net lettering on the hood and the logo on the cab, that even kind of comes from the MR&T, because MR&T had their logo on the cab and they had their name written out with the numbers on the back. So really, at the time, the internet, this is 2000, it was really about sketches, right? For rail graphics, was making sketches and photocopying, magazines, say, hey, I want to recreate this. And so that's really where that inspiration came from, was, photocopying and of course sketching out those things for the rail graphics, for them to figure out. And then they really helped me create the first logo. And then from there, it's just, when they kind of close up shop, I said, hey, can I get the logo? And he said, absolutely. And then from there, I just, worked with Matt to kind of update it a little bit as the years have progressed. And so now we have that logo being used now for numerous other carriers. Is not to jump too far ahead, but that logo has become the baseline for Mac Transportation, really, in terms of other properties.
That's really cool. So now you have a pretty, I'm going to kind of do an oop-de-oop here on you. So you have a pretty substantial Facebook page with a lot of pictures out there. Do you mind if we go out there and share that and kind of show people what we're talking about here?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I sent you guys over the maps as well of the different networks. Since I'm on a different computer than I had planned. I had pulled some photos and those aside, but I messaged them over so we can have a chance to share them on the cast.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let me go here. There's one engine that I just think is super cool, which is, and it's a newer one. I think it's 7052. If that's all right, I'm going to bring that one up. So let me see here. Share the screen. Bam. You get sound effects for free tonight, and that's that's a good thing. That's for sure. So here's what we have here. So let's kind of walk through this then. This is this SD. What is this?
It's a 70 ACE.
Wow.
Yeah.
So take us through the paint scheme then.
Yeah, sure. So kind of neat, I know the CN, of course, the Grand Trunk, heritage scheme with the red and blue, but I kind of think they must have took it from me because I put it on an SD70 Ace first.
That's really cool. So this is a custom job. Did you do the paint job yourself then?
So actually, yes, this is the only engine. Fred, as he got older, I started kind of doing some more my own work in the house. And actually, at the time of transition, 7052 was the only engine I have actually done completed as I was actual painter, did all the detailing myself versus doing a lot of contract work. So of course, with the business and other things, I try to find that capacity. And so most of the time, I usually job out a lot of the paint work and decal work so I can spend time to layout or MACRail. So, but 7052, I can take ownership with. That was the only locomotive that I actually stripped and completely painted from the ground up in terms of the Michigan Interstate scheme. Yeah.
And so are you also brandishing some of the details from MACRail products here as well?
Indeed. So, yeah.
Okay, so all right.
There's some PTC antennas. Those are the MACRail 830. That was literally the first detail part we offered, the short track type antennas. So, yep, that one carries the first detail part we offered, other than, of course, the EOT. But we came to a locomotive category. Those were the original gangster right there.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Wow.
That's and so that kind of like that's one of the things that, at least what I know your business MACRail for, is these detail parts for the cabs, more modern locomotives, and then those those super cool gondola covers, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Greg, do you with Michigan Interstate, are you planning on doing kind of like what Eric Broman did with his Utah belt, and as time goes on, like do a every 3-year update to your motive power, retiring units, adding new power, doing things with lease units, things like that, where even though you have and no joke, all joking about it aside, you know, the whole Michigan Interstate quote unquote family that continues to grow, you know, like incorporating some kind of like what Waco does and Genesee and Wyoming and some of these other places do, where they interchange and swap power out to meet the needs of the core system, you know, or whatever. Do you planning on moving forward with your timeline as time goes on, or are you stuck right where you're at, or planning to stay right where you're at?
That's a great question. So no, the railroad has always kept the goal. I say the goal is to keep the railroad plus or minus 5 years from current time. So basically, if you get the railroad right now, you look around trying to find, 4,600 cubic covered hoppers, plate C box cars. There's still a few, but you're going to find less and less of that equipment. So yes, that equipment is attrited out, whether it's the private or system cars or even foreign cars. Same with power. We had our RS series, Alco Century series. We even had SD35 that got rebuilt into like an eco. And so, yeah, a lot of things do attrit in terms of, the fleet, keeping the fleet up to date. So, get the Aces coming on board. Got another cool project with some SD30 ecos coming. So we start seeing things kind of cascade where, so those are coming on board. So we'll probably see some equipment cascade down. I don't offer locomotive decals, but I do, as the fleet changes, I do offer those engines that I would quote be leaving the system, or maybe we're going to sell them. Then I offer them for sale to modelers to want to maybe bring that to their railroad. So look in the future, because we could see some attrition coming down. But I think one of the best examples here was when Scale Trains brought out their 5188 covered hoppers. We picked up a few of those, and then of course that cascaded some of the 5161s, and then of course the 4750s. And I had a sizable fleet of the MACRail 4600s, and they're now gone. They are off the roster because larger car, larger capacity, and just kind of a trit out. So yeah, we do work
as you do in the railroad,
as you do in the prototype. And it's also good because it helps you cycle your fleet. If you have maybe some cars, like I don't run this car very often. Like I had some 53-foot wells, just too big. 40 foot's more of a balance. So away they go. And we tried the tank train, didn't really fit, moved on to something else. And so there's been cars that have kind of come and gone. And really, as you kind of mentioned about the MAC transportation system, yeah, so there's some of the Wisconsin Upper Michigan engines now on the Michigan Interstate. There's a Texas and Coastal Bend unit here, Oregon Joint Line here. So whether they're here because they're going to the system shop for some work and they've come home for a little bit, or maybe they're here because of a motive, we're a little tight on motive power, so we're going to shuffle things around. I do expect to see that. And so you'll see with some of the other properties, we'll see more of that kind of power mixing, because while they are, not to get too far in that weeds too quick, the locomotive numbering, right, is basically the model. So it's 40, 52. And so the higher end, like your 40, your 50 to 99, the back end of the number, the last two digits, is usually a representation of a 6-axle locomotive, right? So like a GP38 would be a 3810, 3815. It would be a number under 3850. And then if it was like a SD38, it would be 3850, 3851. So they kind of see the same number block, but they're a series. But all the properties are stacked, kind of like Genesee, Wyoming did. So, Michigan Interstate may have a 4067 and a 4068 SD40. Well, 4069 may be actually a Wisconsin Upper Michigan unit. 4070 may be a Texas and Coastal Bend unit. So as the properties have been acquired and came into the fold, they're just stacked into the actual numbering series. So they all share the same numbering, regardless of what property or what scheme they carry.
Do you plan on? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, so like, if you were to take, if Mac Transportation were to bring online another property, you're going to take a look at their motive power roster, and what do you do to integrate that into Mac Transportation? Say you have a property that has GP9s and GP28s as their main property, as their main motive power. It doesn't really fit the overall dynamic of what Michigan Interstate has, but it fits the dynamic of that railroad. Does the numbering scheme, do you do anything to integrate that into the numbering scheme, or do you set that to the side then and say, okay, this is a different cat, we got to do something different with that, or start to phase power out because of the age?
That's a good question. So when the Wisconsin, Upper Michigan, and Michigan Interstate merged here in like 2022, essentially, we dovetailed them together. And so, Bob on his roster has GP18s and some GP20s and some SW1000s. So we did the same numbering doctrine that's used for all the other, EMD type units that Michigan Interstate has, and we applied that to those other sub-series of units. So they're like a 2801, 2802. So they're on the roster. And then, of course, as Bob models the 80s and I model the modern time, they're on there right now. And then probably over the next 5 years, as that railroad is being integrated further into the system, those older engines will probably get removed from roster. A lot of those are not even modeled in current time. So it's not as if, maybe the other railroad I'm working with has to sell off their power per se. But because it's really, like Bob models the 80s, which is great because then I have a lot of freelance creative freedom in terms of the modern times, right? Kind of get his feedback on what would it look like. But there goes a good example, right? So that is the current.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I'll be Johnny behind the scenes here, trying to pull up pictures. Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah.
I love the way you continued to, you just brought the family paint scheme. You brought, because Bob's paint scheme is very much reminiscent of the old DSS&A, the original paint scheme was, and the way you brought those colors in to the Mac Transportation family, and yet you maintain the integrity of the logo from Wisconsin and Upper Michigan, and it just, everything right there just fits. It's just, it absolutely fits, and it's I actually, that takes a lot of work to think that through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and really, it is as much. I know we joke about the Borg and taking over, but it's as much about honoring those layout owners and the legacy that they have created, and helping to continue that legacy onward. So like Bob, I model modern day, and so he gets to kind of see and. I give him a lot of that creative freedom and say, hey, Bob, what do you think about this or that in terms of the locomotives? And I have a GP, what's a GP38-3 that's actually in a Michigan Interstate scheme, but it has Wisconsin Upper Michigan marks. It's one of the neatest looking locomotives. It's a really fancy, kind of a cool thing. So, but yeah, so that's being applied to all the properties. And as we continue to roll out, we're going to see that Alaska yellow on the nose and the rear. That is a staple, and so that is, we're going to continue to see that. The hood and the cab, we're going to see some different colors. Be kind of a really neat fleet. Same with the logos. Some are going to have the Michigan Interstate-esque state on them with other things. Some may be a little more like Bob's in terms of other things. So it's kind of a neat chapter in freelance railroading where everyone's had the railroads, and we're kind of taking it down a little bit different path where we're kind of modeling a larger corporate network, if you will, because that allows intermixing of cars. So maybe a Michigan Interstate car on another railroad, used to be a foreign out car. Well, now it's actually considered a system car. So right, it's a good blending of cars and equipment and stuff, and that it helps you also add to your roster without having to add more cars in terms of that corporate I guess relation, if you will.
You can quote unquote hide things using reporting marks.
Yes.
You can do a lot of that. I learned that on the Wisconsin Central. All of a sudden we started getting WCCL, and we're all like, what the heck is WCC? Well, Wisconsin Central Chicago Link. And we're like, never heard of that before. Well, it was a way for them to get boxcars on the system without having to quote unquote really have them on the system. You know?
Yeah. So we got boxcars that carry MCBT marks. And so that was Mackinac Bridge Transportation. Basically, that was like the subsidiary that does the cross straits barge operations. That subsidiary is now on a lot of the box cars that are being integrated from the Wisconsin Upper Michigan. A lot of those are now beginning to start carry those marks, as that they're kind of blending from WUM to MCIS. They're carrying MCBT, which is more of like a designator. So yeah, just
kind of like SSAM on the WC was Sault Ste. Marie Bridge Company. You know,
it's exactly the same. That's exactly the inspiration from it.
Yep.
Yeah. So
that's
so I guess
awesome.
I guess if you kind of back up a little bit more there, you know, the Wisconsin Central in Upper Michigan, along with the Algoma Central, were also imprints that, you know, I saw as a kid, and, you know, I grew up at the Sioux and going to Straits and stuff. So seeing railroading from both the upper and the lower, the Wisconsin Central was definitely another imprint on how I do, you know, this Class 2 system you see here on the screen.
Do you have any plans on doing any like military veterans units, or like, well, you know, what's the big craze? I mean, in 2014 right now in your world, right? That's kind of when you started. You had already seen like a bunch of heritage units and things like that. The whole, you know, salute to veterans and first responders stuff and all those things that started kind of coming into being at that point. Michigan Interstate going to do anything like that at one point, maybe?
I gotta tell you, stay tuned this fall. There's some really good stuff coming, so stay tuned.
So there's
the teaser.
Yeah. So there's the teaser, right? There's some more teasers, right? So let's just talk. You gotta keep them teased, keep them there, right? So let's just talk about the St. Clair subdivision, which is your layout, and as it relates to this map. So here we have the system map for the Wisconsin and Upper Michigan and the Michigan Interstate, right?
Correct. Yep.
So green is Bob's railroad, and the blue is yours. So where are we in the world where your layout takes place?
Yeah, so really, if you wanted to kind of zoom in a little bit, Bay City, so right there in the deep part of the mitten, if you will. So Bay City, the Saginaw River is really on the layout. You see the iconic swing bridge scene. That is where the layout comes on stage, right there, and that is coming from the west, from Mount Pleasant, coming on at Bay City onto the layout. And so from Bay City to essentially a little bit past Upper Huron, it's kind of compressed, about a 36-mile run, but that piece right there is about what is modeled on the railroad.
That's cool. Awesome.
Yeah, because Upper Huron has the iconic Y that I've been working on here lately with the scenery and the little drainage pond in the center of it. That's been a lot of fun to getting back in the scenery has been enjoyable. I mean, operations are great, but getting away from that, plywood, foam Pacific, and getting some ground in there, getting some coverage. It's amazing how a little bit of work can really bring the layout to life. And so I've been really enjoying the scenery aspect at Upper Huron, trying to get a little bit more done before we have the DFW interchange operating sessions here this fall for the Metroplex, and really for Tulsa, Metroplex, Houston. The layout owners get to come up here and operate for the weekend. So trying to get a little bit more done. Sure. Nothing like a deadline to get you there. But yeah, so that's the 36-mile. The 36-mile portion is what's modeled, and a session is basically a 12-hour day. So 2 sessions make up a full day, and
Wow.
That's
so you have a
awesome.
mixture. So you have a mixture of, so basically every other session you're repeating the transportation plan. So, session A to session B is going to be different, and really had a chance to kind of play that out when we had the NMRA convention here last summer, because I had 3 days of op sessions in a row. So literally, the first and the third session were repeats, but that second session had a whole different run of trains in terms of what the yard was doing, what was on the mirror around the railroad, and to really servicing customers. So, added some Amtrak in there, some intermodal. Definitely a little bit of a stretch for a freelance, but it really adds to the variety for operators. It's not just gather and distribution. There's some bulk operations in there. There's some intermodal, even maintenance train or two. I think it just kind of adds up to that. Kind of breaks up the monotony of what you're going to see. So you really never know when you have a session what you're going to get, other than your typical, your standard merchandise operations, which are scheduled. Everything else is kind of real ad hoc. So I could have a sugar beet shuttle to a rock train.
So that was my next question is, so between Mount Pleasant and Upper Huron, what type of traffic or what type of, I guess, commodities or are you hauling, I guess, on your layout? Or is it just anything and everything?
No, it's a mayor. So there's really three main areas. So one, bridge traffic from the CN, either going to the upper peninsula. So you already have a mixture of some bridge traffic, which could be a matter of a little bit of anything,
So
or even
coming
going
down.
so coming down, going over. So the railroad's kind of in a wishbone shape, essentially. At Mount Pleasant, kind of wise. So traffic flowing to and from Canada, going up to Superior or wherever it is, a myriad of things. So we have in that case, a lot of paper products and wood products that are coming off of the WM are flowing into the south. In the same time, raw materials, chemicals, things for paper making are flowing northbound on the same railroad. So you get a nice mixture there. And then on the Michigan Interstate itself, you have a lot of agriculture. So especially the area I'm modeling, it's soybean, it's corn, it's sugar beet out in that part of Michigan. So very much ag related. So you're going to have all your ag products. You're going to have edible beans, unit train, single car service of stuff. Offline modeled to kind of create some traffic, as we actually model Midland, Michigan as a staging point between Bay City and Mount Pleasant. And prototypically, the Dow Chemical Company has a very large complex there. And so we get, a local that goes offline on the railroad, with hauling every type of placard, tank car you can imagine. And of course, plastics, hoppers, because that place feeds a lot of stock in terms of feedstock and chemicals. So it's a myriad of things. And then on the railroad itself, you have a cement terminal, a marine cement terminal. So lake freighters unloads, cement into boats, which creates rail traffic. And then a big generator of traffic is the Michigan sugar beet mill. And so, we only have a sugar beet shuttle bringing sugar beets in by rail, which up till a couple of years ago was done prototypically by the Huron and Eastern in Bay City. We also have a lot of outbound stuff. So you have your beet pulp, bagged sugar, bulk sugar, molasses. So you have a lot of outbound. So then that train alone in a session will take probably 13 into the plant and 13 out. And it's a big eater. It's a big eater of traffic. And so it really helps kind of drive what is the transportation plan doing, because it's moving a lot of freight. And the yard, Fogle Senior Yard in a session will process anywhere from 100 to 120 cars. It builds 8 blocks. So it's for being a 6-track yard, it does a lot of work. And just like the prototype, how it's set up on, the first 12 hours a day may not be exactly the same way it's up on the second 12 hours a day. And so the tracks are constantly floating based on the need of the yard master to keep his operation going.
So let's get into that prototype versus the model type thing. Now, I don't know if many people know this, but you're currently living in Texas, correct?
I do. Yes, I live in Texas.
and you currently are working for the BNSF. Is that also correct?
I do work for a railroad. Yes.
So A railroad. Nice.
He works for a transportation
a
company.
transportation company. So how do you find correlation between, and you and I and Chris Palomeri have had this conversation in Denver. We're trying to figure out, the prototype versus the model and integrating the knowledge from the prototype into the model to make the model more realistic. How do you see that as either a benefit or a detriment actually to your modeling? Because I mean, for me, I see stuff in the prototype and I'm like, God, that would be awesome to do that. And I go down to my basement and I'll be like, I just can't. It's overwhelming. It's just too much, so and you have to scale things back. So do you have similar thought processes that way between the prototype and from what you see with the prototype and what you see with the model?
Yeah, I do. So I think the word I want to use is bite size.
That's a good way to put it.
The prototype railroads are massive machines, and their job is to make money and move freight. That's what they do, right? And so decisions made, and this is written in books and not just from working there, but decisions on how the railroad operates, where a switch goes in, where industry goes in, that's based on a business need. And so I think that's something that is an easy first add to a model railroad is, okay, do I really need this switch? I know as Lance Meinheim will talk about less is more, right? But in reality, that costs money to put that switch in, that track costs money to have there. Do we really need that spur? And I think as I was working through my current iteration of the railroad, I thought, I don't need that, or I need less of that, because that costs. A roadmaster would hate having to go out there and fix that switch.
Right.
It's in a terrible spot, or why do I have a diamond there? And so I think that's something that, in a track planning perspective, as you're starting a model railroad, that you can apply and see what, from track side, what the prototype does, and then emulate that to make sure that you have a railroad that's obtainable, so you're not building too much of a railroad. And then it's also realistic in terms of, well, I don't need, this industry only spots, 3-car hoppers. Do I need 4 tracks? The answer is no. And so I think helping design your model railroad to be successful based on what the prototype does is very much a first step. And then from there, taking bites in terms of how you add operations, how you service your customers. I think all those things, and then even in using the same prototypical, what is in and out traffic flow. So if you're like, oh, I want to have one big industry on my railroad, try to research something that is a big eater of cars, right? And so you're going to get your biggest bang for the buck in terms of an industry you want to model versus lots of 1 and 2 car spot industries, which there's not a lot of them anymore. Really, there isn't. I mean, there are and there aren't. And so I think it's just all bite-sized pieces, and then that operations piece. I kind of flipping to the MACRail side of the house. I did my EOTs. I sat down with a friend who is a modeler and an engineer. I said, from another railroad, I said, hey, what are, if we take these scenarios of what happens with an EOT and how can we integrate these scenarios into the hobby or to the modeling to maybe slow down your train movement? And he said, okay, we'll do, like basically your EOT, get your EOT set up, front end to rear end no com and rear end to front end no com. And basically 3 simple scenarios. There's probably a whole lot more that we would incorporate or the prototype would encounter, but making it so it's bite size and say, okay, I can model this. I can emulate the frustration that what happens in the prototype. And I think that also, for people who don't understand how hard prototype railroading is, those type of bite-sized pieces also kind of help really dial in and help them focus on what it takes to railroad and really appreciate the work that the railroads do day in and day out is not easy. I mean, conductor, engineer, that's not easy work. So
the time factor alone, that's the one thing is we always tie onto a train and say, just tie onto the train and just take right off.
Yeah, let's go.
No, let's go.
Yeah.
No, there's
Go.
we're gonna tie onto the train, and then we gotta make the air. You gotta do an air test. You gotta wait for him to walk up, and then you gotta get a roll by, and then you gotta do this. Now you gotta get a hold of the dispatcher. That could be 2 hours of your day just waiting to do those, and that's a basic function of your day. That it all depends. And then you got to sit here and wait for this train to come in, or you're waiting for this guy, or you're doing this, or you can do this, but you got to get out of the way and do this. There's so much that we don't integrate into the model or into modeling, because if we really did, nothing would move.
Exactly. So it really goes back to that. I'd say the bite-sized pieces, because I think bite-size is something that, depending on what the modeler wants to model and really represent, they can do that. And I think they can do that without becoming tired while modeling their railroad, because it can be exhausting. The rules and the rule books and all the things, yes and no. I mean, the string line of a train, of course, those kind of things. There's actually probably some prototypical practices in the modeling world when you have a long train with lights on the front end. It's probably not bad to emulate what the modern carriers do in terms of how they handle those trains. But I think that. But really the PTC scenarios and the EOT scenarios, I brought them to light. And so for everyone listening on the call on the cast here or watching, at MACRailProducts.com, go to the freebies tab, and you can download. You can download, so you don't have to have my EOTs. I'd love for you to have my EOTs and my PTC, but I want to make those available to everyone to add to their layouts. And so you can go to the freebies tab, and actually there is downloads, and they'll open up in Excel, and you can actually print them onto a cardstock, or maybe some kind of paper, or laminate them. I know Don Iris, he has added them into his railroad. So it's an easy way to add some operations here. Really is.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your situation cards here. I'm glad you brought those up, because that's really kind of cool. Share them quick. I know Luke Lemons uses he has a couple of he has a hotbox detector on his, where you pull the card and you better or something. But I mean, that's a little different situation. The hotbox it's a situation card, the same thing, but it's using it for a hotbox detector as compared to an EOT, which I think this is brilliant. Believe it or not. Yes. I've seen every one of those before. Not at a card. I mean, I'm on my actual EOT. That's a pain in the butt when that actually happens, and you're going 60 miles an hour down the track, and all of a sudden you get,
not armed.
Yeah, not armed. That's actually kind of a big one.
So this like these, and I don't know, like I got a million questions and things that I want to ask, and it's all coming out at once. But basically, these situation cards, I know, right? I had some caffeine today. Bad choice. So these situation cards, they play right into your ops for your layout. Now I see on here it says 15 minutes fast clock time. What kind of operations do you do at your layout?
Oh, no, I'm not. No, I am not that cool. I will tell you that.
Oh man, that's it. Show's over, folks.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done.
Thanks for coming, Greg.
I put them on there because I don't know. It's like a 1:1 to 4 ratio. I'm not sure what people are doing, but I figure, when I sat down with the engineer I know and said, hey, what would be like a good average time to put on a penalty, if you will, for PTZ initialization or even EOTs? He said like 15 minutes. And it's a good like 1/4 of an hour sort of thing. It's real easy to take. Whether you do that or not, or you take 5 minutes or 2 minutes, it's really there as a suggestion, and that's what we kind of went with. So yeah,
that's really cool. So I'm assuming you're using these on your layout. What do you do to penalize your operators then? So let's say I have a PTC trip installation. I got an error, need to reset. So how do you make them wait?
Take a break.
Make them hang out.
Yeah, go hang out for a minute. So,
Yeah.
and really, given the railroad, when you're in here on the Michigan Interstate, you're kind of there's a lift out section that goes in, so you're kind of locked in here. So normally it's if you pull that car like, oh, Greg, I'm like, okay, wait for a minute to get on the road, kind of thing, because it may be kind of hard for you to get out. So I'll go to a soda or whatever it is, but you're kind of in here. There's 4 other adults in the same area, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to make you roll out of here and take 5 minutes, but just for a quick minute or two, and then we get the party started again and go back on to it. So we really try to operate pretty casual on the Michigan Interstate. We have a good time and we move a lot of freight, but we really try to keep operations pretty casual.
So this is a kind of a depiction of what you got going on in there, right?
Wow, that looks awesome.
Yep. So you'll see in the background. So that was a really cool crew. I had I think that was my third. That was my third operating session before the National Train Show. I had Michelle Kempema there. She was working in the yard, and you can see John Parker giving her the look as he's the yard master. And then I had Cynthia Priest. She's up there. She was running a ballast train that's equipped with MACRail doors and slope sheets and all that good stuff. So yeah, she was having a good time. That's actually one of the veteran engines, or the military appreciation engine, 7076 is what she had on that train. So yeah, and as you see, she's a little taller in that. And so what we do is the layout is built to I'm 6'3", so the layout's built to my eye height.
Gosh.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
So it's a tall layout.
Know. He's us short guys, Andy.
Yeah.
So it's built to, it's 75 inches essentially, right? It's pretty tall. And so what I did is there's actually 3 large wooden boxes that are like about 1.5 feet wide by 3 feet long, and they're solid. I had a carpenter make them for me, and actually Cynthia's actually staying on one of those. So depending on where you are on the railroad, you can actually slide them around a little bit and have a good footing to make sure it's like just like a proper, like the actual railroad safety, right? Safety's first,
right?
Good footing, because you are up in the air about 1 foot, so making sure you're balanced, so you're not going to fall over. So they're really solid, and it helps the operators work the upper deck when they're operating there, just whether a local or a merchandise train. So, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
This looks like a beautiful layout. Man, if I ever get a chance, I'm going to hit you up, Greg.
Okay.
I want to see this.
And it really, it's really kind of cool about it is the layout itself is around 36 inches tall, the lower deck, because, one time my wife actually worked from home. So the layout was built over the computer area for her. And so it's a effective, it's an office, it's a library as well. And then, as you can see, I did with the Valiances, they're black. And then the room itself is a Motor City blue. And so it really when you're operating with the museum-esque Valiances, it really pulls you into the scene. And that's another one of those tricks that kind of helps you not realize you're working on about an 18-inch maximum with layout. And you really kind of forget where you are, and you really lose that small room focus.
Well, yeah. I mean, like even when I just zoomed in, just on the picture itself, and you don't even see really, the walls and the drywall and all that stuff. I mean, it's just it looks really big with the valances and just how it's kind of sucks you in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's cool.
It's really cool. So actually, where John and Cynthia are right now is actually where I'm sitting, just to kind of give you an idea, because I'm facing the computer. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So the yard's kind of above where the computer's sitting then.
Yeah. So the 6-track yard's right there. And then, there's since we're kind of talking about the railroad, there's below actually right behind the computer here and below the actual main yard is a 4-track west staging yard. So I can actually stage 4 trains plus the actual inclines, 5 trains to come on the railroad from the west. And then you have the 6-track yard. There's a full-on passing siding there as well at Bay City. And then, of course, there's another passing siding up on the upper deck at Grays Lake. So you can actually make 2 meets and passes. And then, of course, or, as the layout completes, there's actually a 3-track east staging yard, excuse me, and then because really what the layout is, it looks as fancy as it is. It's really 2 continuous runs. There's a lower level and an upper level, and the upper level is constantly in because my wife is short enough she can fit under the walk-in, so it stays in. But essentially it's what it is. So like on the upper level, if I have people come over to our house, how do I convince her? Well, it just kind of happens. So, but that the real part of the deal, and we'll get to that. The real part of the deal was, sorry, here battery, but the real part of the deal was, making it so I could put a train on the upper level and just run it. So I can break a train in, I can test a train out, or if I have family friends over who don't care about operations, they just the kids want to see trains run. The trains can run, and it lets them have that. I'm able to kind of adjust the railroad to the audience, and so it makes it kind of appealing to everyone versus just it's operating. Oh, I can't operate anything. People just want to see a train run, especially a double stack train with all the colorful containers. Yep. Kids just eat that up, right? And so that's what you got.
So there's a couple pictures I'm going to try and get to here. So I think this is the picture of the veterans unit. Is that right?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Isn't that cool?
That looks really, really cool. I hate you for that, by the way. That is too cool, man.
So I can't take too much. I can't take too much credit for that. That's awesome. That's actually the KCS unit. And then I used the good folks up at Mile Train Shop in Green Bay.
Engine House Services.
Engine House Services. They did a cool video on removing lettering without destroying the paint job, using like a mixture of things in those eraser pencils. I used that exact process to remove the KCS and apply the Michigan Interstate in the exact same spot. So I was able to really preserve that amazing paint scheme, and then just kind of add my own Michigan Interstate take to it. So yeah,
that's
minimal work, maximum value.
There you go.
That's cool. Yeah, that would be David Winther's dad. Yeah.
That was a great video. So I encourage a lot of folks to take a look at that, because it really preserved that paint job, but it gave you what you needed to do what you want to and re-letter a car or whatever it is. I use that same process on my Michigan Interstate box cars I got from Prairie Shadows, because I offer a decal set. If you want, because Chris did 3 road numbers. If you want more road numbers, I did a decal set that gave you 3 extra road numbers if you just remove them, and then of course some patches if you wanted to get some other non-Michigan Interstate cars. But yeah, the same process worked, very effective. So
no, that's really, really cool.
That's really awesome.
Unit. Yeah, and I'm very jealous.
I like it.
I'll just be
100%
honest. That's kind of something I want to do with the Mascoutin Valley. That's for sure. So
if you think that's cool, just wait till what's coming this fall.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So let's talk. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, man, seriously, it's just tease after tease after tease.
I know, right? It's all this guy does.
There is so much stuff in the pipeline of cool things that this whole fall is going to be just full of neat things, not only from Michigan Interstate, but from MACRail. And so it's a constant. I mean, the evenings are late, so you're in the office and you're working, and then the evenings you get a break from the prototype, and you retool and you work on either the model or the business. And so a lot of that, my best work is done between 9 and midnight, if you believe that, because
I believe it.
So I told my wife, I said, one of these days, when I don't model between 9 and midnight, I'm looking forward to, what does modeling look like in the daytime? Because if this is how good it looks at night, I can imagine if I have all not being exhausted from a day at work or, family time to see what it's all about. So.
Yeah, that's cool. So why don't we, since we're kind of hour in here, why don't we talk about MACRail products a little bit?
Sure.
And then what I do want to do is, so I have a couple things written down. I do want to get to a couple of the other properties that are coming into the transportation company that you wanted to share tonight. So we're going to do that at the end and see some of the cool stuff. I got the pictures queued and ready to go on that. So, but let's talk about MACRail a little bit here and just kind of how that all started out.
Okay. So let's go back to 2020, COVID.
Okay.
And actually, really before COVID, it was really back in, let's see, February of 2020. I want to create an EOT for my own use, just to have to hang on a train. There wasn't one on the market. So I kind of was messing around with some things. Nothing really came out of it. And then fast forward to COVID, and I started having some bit more modeling time. And so I worked on my Fort Mackinac paper facility. Well, I needed like 120 paper rolls or craft board liners. And I love the Walthers ones, but at $12 for like 4, I don't think I could afford 120 of those. And so a friend I knew, N-Scaler, Marshall Peterson, he was a 3D printer. I was like, hey, can you make me simple cylinders? And he made me a bunch of cylinders, like a piece of cake, easy to do. And then, I kind of thought about it, and like late April, I thought, wait a minute, if you did that, we can design and make EOTs. Like I can make EOTs for me. That's all I want to do. And so next became like a month-long process, April to May, of really making different designs. They were kind of big and chunky, but like, well, does it work? Does it not work? Is it durable? There was a lot of testing. And long story short, come down to I think late April, early May. Mike Metello from Making Tracks Trains. I know him and Shannon from the Virginia area. He's a train show dealer, and he has an online website. He said, "You're going to make this, right, and sell it." And I thought, hold my beer, kind of thing. So, I mean, really, I went to school for entrepreneurship, and I had a school bus cleaning business in high school. So for me, entrepreneurship is something I always loved. Create my own business, my own products, and kind of marketing and doing all that work. So May 28th of 2020, MACRail was formed as a LLC in Texas. And so, kind of developed from there. And then really July 10th of 2020, the first EOTs went for sale on the Facebook. I had a Facebook shop, real simple. Had a Facebook shop and started selling the version 1 of the EOTs for both KD5 and KD58s. And then from there, it just took off. I mean, now we're over 100 products. We really kind of, I focus on the modern modeler more or less than anyone else. And then it really kind of thought, okay, in the 3D printing world, what can I do differently than like a Shapeways? Because I had bought some stuff at Shapeways. You had to wait for it. Hopefully it looked good when you got it. It was still on the sprue. So if you broke it, it's on you. It's expensive. And so, rolling back on this, all these things, and kind of like my ideas, I thought, well, I'm also I'm a father. I'm also a family guy. So my time at the workbench is already limited on top of work, family, all the other things. So what if I started making modern 3D prints that were sort of prepared to be used? And if I made them, not only do I make the part, I prime them. So you're going to get a part that's already been primed. So it's going to be high quality. Start making sure it doesn't have any kind of weird chips or nicks in it. And then I give you all the things you need to do that piece, right? So if it's a decal set, like an RCL, I give you the stand, the RCL, little hair bristles, the wiring, the decal set. So really, when you sit down to do a project and you open up a MACRail kit, I want you to be able to, in that time you have at the workbench, be successful and get your product and get your task done. And that's really was kind of a driver. So like the air conditioners and some of the PTC antennas, they come in a completed white. So right out of the package, you just sand the bottom, making sure you have a good solid fit and a good clean mating to the surface, and you glue them on. And so it should be minimal time at the workbench to give you maximum time with your model railroad. And that's really was kind of the driving force on the things I've offered, and just keep pushing forward. So, a lot of PTC things, very niche, right? BNSF has their own UP, NS, everyone has a different style. And so I've been kind of working really kind of counterclockwise around the country, working through all the odd ones, start kind of the BNSF odd ones first, trying to find photos of those. And of course, there's like a bazillion versions of them. And then now we're kind of working to the full deck type ones with like the CP, the CN, and we'll finish off with BNSF and their full deck ones that you see like on their Aces and Gevos that come from the factory. Those will be the last ones to be made because a lot of those are already coming with the manufactured models. So I'm not as in a hurry to make those, but they will be eventually. The whole entire product line will be there. So, yep.
Are you finding that by painting them prior to or priming them prior to sending them out? I do some 3D printing myself also. I've done enough of it. One of the things is like, so I know like a lot of yours, like some of your stands and things of that nature. Do you find that by doing that allows that to not continue that curing process, so that way they don't warp and they don't get disfigured as quickly or at all?
Yeah, I find that the priming does a couple of things. Luckily, my stuff is pretty small, so it does a pretty good job of not warping too bad. Sometimes there's exceptions. I do agree with you that the paint, especially on super fine detail parts like the CN, I call them the CN bits and bobs. I mean, they're tiny antennas.
Yeah.
The paint helps those kind of create a shell. So if it's a really thin print, it adds a extra micron of a layer, and that does help protect the print and makes it a little bit more survivable, especially for something that small. It also helps me with a quality control. So, right. So a lot of times you print something, you can't see if there's a small blemish because it's not really known until you actually prime the model or put paint on it. So priming kind of also gives me a quick visual to make sure that, the print did in fact turn out like it's supposed to, and it's meeting the standard of what I expect for my products before they're sold to someone. So it helps in multiple ways. And as I mentioned, kind of like the derails, they're going to be like a yellow or an orange when they're final painted. So on those, I prime those in white. So trying to, based on what the part normally is in terms of the color, I try to prime more towards what it's going to be actual. And so then you're not having to go back and go, okay, well, Greg painted this in gray and I want to make this yellow, so I got to put a white primer on top of it. We try to offer in white or gray based on the prototype, the final finish, and helping you get there. So.
Oh, this is so cool. You have everything here for, like, this isn't just here's some random 3D print stuff. Come buy my shit. You have installation instructions. You have, you're pre-priming it. You're going through and doing, all of the research to essentially help the modeler, be successful with this. This is really awesome. You don't see this level of service on a lot of 3D print outfits. This is really good. I like this.
Yeah, distinctive details enhance your modeling. That is our slogan. I say my slogan. That's a shop of one. But yeah, we want to be distinctive, and I think that's how we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace is this type of service and offerings. And then really given as niche as it is, the more offerings we have, folks can say, okay, I need some GPS domes and I need some Sinclair antennas. And so there's some basic things in there, but then a lot of them are very much the ultra detail of a ultra modern locomotive that, you're not going to find on a manufactured model, maybe not, but offering just those variations. So
are you working basically off of drawings, or are you working off of photographs? Is it just how are you getting the scalability of the parts? Because I know, being an locomotive engineer, I know how odd some of these shapes and like little hidden pockets and some of these things are. It's how are you without giving away too many secrets? How are you able to get it? Because the stuff is incredibly accurate. So
so some of the stuff, a lot of it comes down to scaling. I would tell you this much, because the prototype and the model, as much as we want to just take it from prototype down to model size, it is not that easy. And I understand what the manufacturers talk about in terms of trying to recreate, because it is not one for one. It really is not, especially in the material science side of the world. So not to dive too far there, but a lot of it's being proportional to this, or if there's already a OEM that has a model like this, right? We want to make sure that that model matches the OEM. So if you're going to have a model and you add a part and it has maybe like a Bowser, PTC, we make sure ours is comparable. So it looks like, it's like an aftermarket part. They're going to look comparable. They are different. They are not the same size, but they are comparable to the eye in terms of, I have an ST30 Eco and my own ST30 Eco. I put my own part on. You put them side by side, very minimal differences, but enough that it looks really good. So a lot of it's that. It's scaling right to the proportions of the models, because the cabs are all different. If you believe this, I mean, a GP38 that's an Atlas from an Athearn, they're different. And so trying to find, okay, well, this cab's a little bit longer, this cab's a little bit shorter. Really, a lot of times I end up trying to split the difference, right? Because, it's also a fine line of, okay, how many SKUs am I going to offer? Because, my dealers are going to wring my neck if I keep offering these sub series of details. So you want to make sure you get a detail that you can offer that covers as many models in the market, and not have any issues. So that's kind of where I find myself in terms of,
oh my God,
of the parts. So yeah,
you can just get lost in this.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a modern day modeler, anybody in the section crew, if you're, in all the honesty, and I'm not trying to boost Greg's, anything. Trust me.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, we don't like the.
We don't want to do that. That's not a road we want to go down. But having spent time with him, in all seriousness, in Denver, seeing virtually the entire collection that he's got on display at the show in Denver, having sat down with him and having an amazing weekend, and really learning a lot about what MACRail actually is, and where this product line is going. If you're a modern day modeler, you really need to get to his website, because your models will just explode. They are really, really some very, very well done details, and it's just really, it was, some of the stuff you've got is just too cool for school, dude. I mean, it just
derails.
Yeah, I have some of those for you.
You have some of them.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I brought that up.
I've seen them in person twice since Denver, and I forgot to give it to them twice. But
these are great. I mean, so I can't take credit for. I'll take some credit for him, but Scott Thornton, he had his Scotty's Metal Shop for a little bit, and this was actually Scott's design. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to just go back to being a modeling guy and not have to worry about small business. What do you think about adding this to your product line?" I said, "Absolutely." So, we worked that out, and he said, "You can enhance it a little bit?" I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna add a decal set to it." I said, "That's the MACRail way of doing things. We're gonna add a decal set, so you can add derail signs or however you want to." And that's exactly what we did, and made what Scott's doing. We just made it a little bit better, and we call it the Scotty. So he gets homage for everything. So yeah.
Are you going to plan on maybe? Now I know you do all modern stuff, but everything modern has some things modern have, lineage that goes back a ways. Are there any plans on possibly doing a retro type derail, like the one-sided? Because not the wedge type, because that's more of a modern thing, but the
cool.
The one direction derail or something like that along those lines.
I can't rule it out. We're here this weekend. I'll be releasing quite a few new products that I don't have on the website yet. The portable derail. I worked with Chuck from Chuck from Logic Rail Technologies. Him and I partnered together, and we're doing a modern. Oh, I say modern, but a portable derail, which actually seats between your ties. and we're also doing a wheel chock. We call it the chuck. And so, yeah, we're just some neat new things, that helps, at an industry. And the wheel chock's a little oversized, but it's designed for you to also handle with your hands. And so it has to be for it to survive.
You mean like a
So
actual functional wheel chock, not just
that's correct.
deal, dude. That's
Pack of
nuts.
Yeah, a Mac 205 pack of 3 for $8. I'm in the process of shipping them to dealers, and they'll be on the website this weekend. And yeah, so they basically seat between the ties. And Wade Kelly up out of Canada, he was testing some out for me. He had one of them, a little bit of sanding work to get it to seat the best. He had a 60-car train on a 2.5% grade, and that wheel chock was holding it.
No
so
way.
He put it
what?
To the test. Yeah.
No. Does it say? Is it the kind? Does it say kind of like the thing that kind of goes like that? It says wheel chock or chalk. They mean they're like usually yellow. Is it kind of something along those lines, or?
Yeah, Andy, if you want to pull up the Facebook page, it should be on there. It's had some pictures here I posted here as kind of a preview, but yeah, it's a one piece wonder. So the less pieces, the better in terms of reliability and durability. And yeah, it's it kind of has let's see here. I love that picture. Peanuts.
Yeah. I think
there it is, right there.
Here. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it has the essence of the wheel chock, but of course it is oversized, and it has some of the same similarities of the portable derail, but it is angled right so the wheel can seat right up against it. So whether you use it for holding cars on a grade or actually at an industry.
Is that scale specific or rail specific?
It fits best on code 83. So.
So it might even work on my stuff. Even
it may.
You're gonna put the T-pin industry out of business. What am I gonna do with all these T-pins? Stop my cars from rolling down grades and stuff.
That's a great idea. That's a fantastic idea.
I absolutely love this. This is crazy.
Yeah,
it
was great.
Man.
So so Chuck from Logic Rail Tech, he's out of the Houston area. He reached out and said, "Hey, what do you think about doing a portable derail?" There was one in the MACRail magazine, a couple of years back by a guy by the name of Ole Melhouse. And so we kind of built it off of his plans he had to a point, a little bit different. And we call it the Ole. He's here in North Texas. He's a former BNSF maintenance away guy. So we kind of honor him with the name of it because it was his design, kind of original design in MACRail that we kind of use as a basis to create that portable derail. So, and I include decals there as well. So you can, a little bit of piece of brass wires included. Yeah, a little piece of brass wires included. And so you can actually model the little sign on the portable derail.
Nice.
That's crazy.
I keep Circus City decals in business.
I was gonna say. There's, and then you even have some of the, this is Bill Kenkel's got the right philosophy here. Just shut up and take my money. But I was looking, you have some. I'm gonna go back to your shop page just a sec here once I figure out the technology. But you have the intermodal accessories here. Mm-hmm. So I think the cage, for the icebox cage. That's pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah. So that's actually, if you believe it, that's probably one of the older type detail parts on the lineup, because that was obviously from the 90s, because those cages were on 48-foot reefer containers. And so Sammy Carlisle, he's a modeler who actually did these, and he had made one out of scratch. He goes, "Can we make this into a print?" And we're like, "Absolutely, we can make this a print." So I offer the cage for making a 48-foot reefer. You can use it on a 53-foot if you want to. It's really universal fit. And then I also, of course, do the MACRail cage, which is one of the really fascinating cages they had on their
Mhm.
45 or 48-foot reefer trailers that were in intermodal service for UPS. So offer both cages, kind of really unique to the intermodal sphere of modeling. And then a couple of GPS units out there. The Schneider one's a big old box on the front of their containers, and then the Hunt ones are just these little tiny sticks. And so it's really was based on you can find the plans and kind of the specs online. You kind of create it in general, then you look at some pictures, but then you try to put on the model and realize, well, the corrugated distance on a model is a lot different than the prototype. It's close, but it's different. So you're even something that small, you're having to adjust it to really fit how is the model made, and then how do you best fit the model and cover different styles of intermodal containers that may have had those GPS units. So
Now,
it's super tiny.
oh my God, I did not know that these containers had these things.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I learned something today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like this is old hat for you guys, but geez, I mean, I'm living under a rock here.
Now
I did not know that these things had GPS on them.
Yes, now some of the boxcars are getting tracking units put on them too.
Oh my God.
I know those new, what are they? The new UP 60-foot boxcars, those solid yellow things. I'm fairly certain those have got some, and I know the CN has got some tracking hardware on some of their equipment as well. It's getting to be more and more prevalent.
Yeah, telematics, it seems like in the railroading industry, I think it's big in trucking for a while. You can go out there and find a lot of press releases and like Progressive Railroading and other magazine articles and PR articles. But yeah, telematics is really becoming kind of a big thing. And I think you're going to see more of it as we continue down that path.
That's what I do for a day job. Is I'm a telematics engineer. So
yeah,
so like I did not know. I do cars and trucks, and I had no clue that they had them on these containers.
So yeah, I call most of my parts are very much, we keep them very generic, right, in terms of naming. So for obviously in copyright and other things, it's a part. But the Schneider one or the SNLU, I call it the brick, and then on the JB Hunt we call it the stick. So real kind of looks like a big old brick, on the front of a container, and so they are night and day difference. And then I had someone reach out here recently about adding that. So Amazon on their containers and trailers has a different style of GPS. So wink, wink, wink. That'll probably be a future ad here this fall.
What? Yeah, you heard it here first.
Heard it here first on the second section. But yeah, probably be like a Mac 1104. I bet you'll be right. Probably be an Amazon GPS unit. So that will be coming here in the future, I imagine. So yeah, try to, if there's a big demand on it, Walmart had their own style. If there's a big demand, modelers say, hey, we'll look at it. Absolutely. We always like those suggestions. And it may not be immediate, but we're always trying to look at what are folks modeling and listening. And then as we find a great way to, integrate them into maybe a plan, we'll offer it. So
I was just going to say, are you starting to find that it's really odd, because the railroad industry for years has been, if you saw one, it's the same across the board, no matter what, or for the most part. What I mean is there's a lot of longevity with the railroad industry. I mean, they buy something one time and they make it last 70 years. But nowadays the technological side of being in the railroad industry is changing daily almost. I mean, there is new technology coming out all the time. And are you starting to find that certain things, like just about the time you get an antenna array pinned down or something like that, you're like, oh man, now here's another one with an extra thing here. What's this all about? Or like seeing things, especially on the freight car side. Being an engineer, that's what I notice the most, is all of a sudden I'll see something and it'll be like, wait a minute, I've never seen that before. you know,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden I'm looking at the date on the car, and you know, I'm like, oh, that's a brand spanking new car. Well, you can tell it's a new car, but I mean, well, look at the date, it's within the last year. I'm like, well, I've never seen that, something like that, or I've never seen that door, like that door handle type, you know, or something. I mean, it just seems like technology, not just electrical, but the mechanical technology of railroading seems to change very rapidly.
Yeah.
And so with MACRail, are you trying to keep up with that, or are you just kind of as it comes and you get time, because it does change so fast? You know, I know there's a lot. I know there's a lot.
So I guess the best way to describe this and make everyone laugh for a minute is y'all ever seen that meme? You ever seen that meme of Ben Affleck with his head down with a cigarette?
Yes.
Yes.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel sometimes. That's how I feel when. That's how I feel sometimes when. Makes you laugh, but you know you'll design something and you find a variation, right? And I think one of the best examples of that is the NS. What I call what I brand the big deck or PTC on top of the whole wide cab or cab. I call them the full tops. And so NS has two versions, one for like their wide cabs and one for like rebuilds and ecos. Slight variations, same sizing, and then you know there's some great NS pictures on the Facebook from the NS wanting out of shop. So I was just kind of perusing through them, seeing what's out there, seeing what's new, and then the little I call it the morsel GPS I already sell. Some of these arrays start popping up on top. Not all of them, but some. So literally, as I was making and making the first batch of these to start selling, I had to stop, go make more of those morsel GPSs, and I actually throw that in the package. So I give you two of those. So really, you can model, so what's really just two different styles. You can add that little morsel, and that makes it now 4 different styles. But yes, or a different style of anti-tread pattern on top. And like someone's like, it's gray. Oh, it's black. Oh, it's white. I'm like, we're just gonna go down the road with gray. And I'm sure, Mr. Welke can capitalize on making that for you in black if you really need it. But sometimes
Oh,
so
go ahead.
Those kind of situations is really what you come up to, and at that point you're just kind of like, as people start asking about variations, and you're kind of like, what, this is what I've found, this is the most prevalent, and this is the decision as the business owner. At some point you're like, okay, this is the decision, we are moving forward with this piece. And that's just kind of, if we can offer as an accessory kit something different, we will. But a lot of times it's like, okay, we're set and we're moving forward with this. And the market's going to have to react. They're going to have to adjust or accordingly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had a Jeep 38-2 the other day, a Grand Trunk one, as a matter of fact. And it got on it, and I'm sitting here going, what the hell is that thing? Right smack in the middle of the nose is this little rounded conical antenna looking thing. So what do I do naturally? I go down into the toilet and I go up and I look up and I'm like, this isn't connected to nothing. I'm like, what is this? What is this? It's just a little it was what, maybe about the size of a pop can at the base and about an inch, and it was rounded, but it was a cone. And I'm sitting here going, okay, seriously? So now I get to look at this all day long, and I still have no idea. There was nothing connecting it. I don't know if there was a hidden wire someplace or what it was, or if it used to be an antenna of some sort and they just never took it off. But it kind of looked like a big pimple on the nose of the engine. But it was sitting right on the top. Yeah, there you go. That's it. So
yes,
I mean,
that is it.
Yeah. So like when it comes to find things like that, do you just draw the line and say, okay, Ostertag told me about this conical thing, and you look, okay, yeah, you know what? No, I'm just not going to do that right now. Because that's just, there isn't enough evidence of that being in use. That's kind of a one-off. Nobody really knows what it's for. Do you have a list of things like that that are, if I could find more evidence of it, maybe, but not right now.
Yeah. I have a notepad just full of stuff They just noted.
Noted. Yep. Here, this one.
Yeah, we'll circle back in 2028, maybe 2029. We'll circle back on that, kind of thing. Or if we go back through and maybe refresh a print, maybe like the track antennas. Originally they were a little bit big, a little bit thick on the flanges. We came back through, made them about half as thick as before, so they're much more to scale. At that point, as you're going back through and you're redoing a print, that's a great opportunity to maybe add that variation as part of the kit. Right. And so, like a good example here is the UP on their GP and ST series, like standard cab engines. They have what I call the top box PTC, and it's behind the air conditioner. They're also on the GMTX engines where they're like up on a stand. Well, the same unit is also on the gensets and on, I think, the TRA engines, but they don't have a stand with them. And so I did not know about that. And so I got, some of my Josh, I don't know if Josh is watching or not, but from California, when my customers is like, Greg, I had to literally buy your top box and I had to remove the whole bottom of it. And now I'm making the piece without the bottom. So I'm making it low profile. And so that's the top box.
Oh, that right there. Oh, nice.
Yeah. So the array sits on a big elevated welded box. And then basically there's another variation of that same exact array, but that big box you see is not there. It just sits flat on the like the gen set.
Just so like a plate? Is it just like on a plate?
It just mounts right to the roof line.
Oh wow, and, that's cool.
Yeah, so that whole big old like 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter thick box is gone. So it's ultra low profile. So the gen sets have it, and some of my California modelers and were sharing pictures with me. So I'm like, yeah, that's an easy adjustment because all I have to go into print is just remove that bottom part of the file, make it a new file, and then take it to print and make sure of course prints like it's supposed to. But that it's called now we're going to offer it as the 857S, and I can already imagine my dealers are going to be loving it because instead of making it a new SKU number, I went back and dovetailed it into the current 857. So I can just see Kevin Honda right now out in Arnie's, like cursing at me as he has to move every 3x5 over one spot because Greg added a new 857S. So I love my dealers. Yeah, so I love my dealers, but I guarantee you they're gonna be probably. I don't try to do that very often, but in this case here, I wanted to keep them two when they're side by side in the point of sale. I want to keep them side by side. So if someone's like, "Oh, I'm looking for the short one," it's right here. It's next to the tall one, right? So versus, I don't, because Details West and Detail Associates, which I've loved and I grew up using, they do a really good job of keeping their parts grouped together by type of part, right? So normally we just add a new SKU, but in this case here I went back and dovetailed it in. So, and that's coming out here this weekend. So yeah, it's a good example of a slight variation where, and as Dave Berman noted, either pictures or it doesn't exist. And so, yeah, it's that happens. So but that MAME is exactly how I feel when I catch a new one and go, I did not see that.
Yep. I think we're just gonna have this just kind of posted this meme of poor
that should have been the
Ben
thumbnail.
here.
That should have been the thumbnail.
That should have been the thumbnail for tonight's show. Is just here's poor Greg. There's more tech.
Greg, yeah. MACRail seeing new road tech.
Yep, there he is.
Greg, where are you coming to Train Fest in November?
Yeah, where are you going to be?
Where are you going to be?
Texas.
No.
Okay. You doing any shows this year? I'll ask the Captain Obvious question.
This is what I dealt with in Colorado the whole time.
You weren't specific enough, Mike.
No, I was not. No, I wasn't. I tell you what, we had such a good time. That was so much fun. I tell you what, it was such a good weekend.
Yeah, John Garberg does a fantastic job at the Rocky Mountain Train Show. Since we're here, I'm going to put a plug in for it. If you have not had a chance to go to it, Andy, I think it'd be a great trip out there. Getting to a flight to Denver is pretty inexpensive from around the country. Flying Frontier, United American. get out there to that show. It's an amazing show. It's one of the best in the West. So, yeah.
I think next year everything's happening out in Greeley this next year. I think, right? It's the show's in Denver, but I think all the extracurriculars are out in Greeley.
They may be. I know. The Colorado Model Railroad Museum plays a big part in that show, and so I think there may be some things out there and stuff. And that's a great. That's a great. I tell you, that's a weekend. That is a model train weekend. If you have opportunity, not only is there great rail fanning in the Denver area, it's a lot of great BNSF and UP action, but you got that museum up in Greeley, which is an hour away. Train show. You can really make a lot of the weekend to come to Denver and go to the show and then see all the things that are model train related. It's fantastic. So
yeah, I know really I'm going to be going again next April, so it's going to be that's going to be a blast. So look out. I'm coming.
You're going back. You're going back.
This time I'm going loaded for bear. After it, I have my eyes on a couple of things already.
So I think since I'm no longer internationally traveling for work, usually I have a trip in the spring where I have to go over to the UK. That's off the books now. So I think my travel schedule's opened up for 2025. So I might be heading out to Rocky Mountain this coming spring as well. So I made St. Louis.
Yeah. I still owe St. Louis a visit. I always kind of laugh because St. Louis and even the Spring Creek show fall around the same time of July. I go on our family vacation, and so I'm like Hawaii or train show, Hawaii or train show. I'm like,
I mean, they're pretty much. I mean, St. Louis and Hawaii are pretty much the same thing. I've been to both. I mean,
yeah, both. So it falls. Like we're like this year. In the summer or spring break, I usually do a MACRail product planning retreat. So I sit down and I take all the stuff and start designing new ideas and new things. And that's like the wheel float. It came from a week of design and caliper work and this and that to get what it is. But yes, Amherst, we will be there. I can't man the name. Young Building, right in front of the food court, which is fantastic because it keeps me full the entire time.
I like to eat.
Yeah, my boy, my son, and my son, he's also there with me. And, we're next to Chris from Home Shop, so we're kind of a tag team, dynamic duo. But my son comes along, and he loves watching because like they'll have football. Is it football? Is it playoffs? No, it's January. I think so.
Yeah,
He's usually in the bar restaurant on Sunday afternoons watching the game while I'm, watching for sales or whatever it is. So it's a good time. And Amherst is a great show. So kind of get back to your question about shows. So the rest of this year, I don't have anything on the books the rest of this year. Really our focus will be for Amherst in January. I'm a little behind on getting the EOTs that need to be lit. So I have to make them and then send them to the vendor. I'm way behind in terms of trying to get those done. So I'm trying to really take the time and every weekend I can to not work about shows here locally and try to push to get some of those products caught back up and make sure I'm on plan, because you're really about a 2 months before Amherst. Of course, you have Christmas in there and the Thanksgiving, which is already a solid time of sales. You really have to begin stocking. And I know all the vendors and manufacturers can tell you got to start stocking early for Amherst because it is a wild experience. I think it was like 25 or 26,000 people last year. I mean, I took 40 packs of derails and they were gone in like the first 4 hours. So
wow.
Yeah, I mean things.
What?
I mean,
holy man.
Yeah, it is a fantastic show. I mean, there's so much to see and do and vendors and dealers, but you got to come with cash in hand because especially that Saturday, it is an experience. I've never seen anything like it. In this past year, I think it was I quote myself, but one of the highest crowds in a while.
It was one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, it was packed. They did very
even
well. So
St. Louis set another record for attendance.
Yeah.
They had almost, what is it, a little over 900 or right around
Almost
900?
1,000 this
Almost
year. I mean, for
900 and
RPM, that's
950,
huge.
I think it was
Yeah.
950.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was last year. It was 8 something. So I mean, it just continues to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, it's a good sign. That kind of going that tangent of train shows. It is good to see train shows regionally and nationally coming back. I know Temple, Texas had a really good show last fall. Plano, Texas had a good show. It's encouraging to see that, because I think coming off of COVID, everyone was like, will the train show ever return? And I know even like Amherst, it's been just really encouraging to see the crowds continuing to grow every year. And if I can be a part of them, I'd like to, but unfortunately, you only have so much vacation time, because it is a vacation from the full-time job. So you have to kind of play the cards well on where you're going to spend that time off. And Amherst and Denver, just given the size of scope, offer that best value in terms for MACRail. So, and we're always looking for other shows, of course, but yeah, it's a time constraint.
Sure. So, and then you said that, just to kind of tie it up here. So you're going to be at Amherst, and then Rocky Mountain. You're going back to that one, right? So
Absolutely.
Yep. So you got those 2 shows where you can come see Greg, but I don't think we kind of made a big enough point of this weekend. You're bringing out more products, right?
Correct.
So you're going to be, so I know we kind of touched on it a little bit. I'm not going to ask you what it is. We can have the big happy reveal, but where can I find those new releases? So where are you going to make your announcements for those new releases of products?
Yeah. So the announcements are actually, in terms of what the SKU and the price, they are already out on the MACRail Facebook page. And so they're on the socials, the MACRail Facebook page, Instagram. So it's not really a mystery. It's just a matter of getting them on the site for purchase. So right now I'm filling orders to get them out to dealers.
Okay.
I try to release, online at the same time I'm shipping to dealers. So dealers are beginning to get that new inventory in. So if folks want to go to their favorite MACRail dealer in person, they're going to have it. So we got, the 204 portable derails come out this weekend. The 205 wheel chock is coming out. The 8811 CP rail type solar panels coming out this weekend.
That's here.
Yep. Yeah, that was another one of those kind of like smoke moments, because didn't think CP had them, and then I started seeing pictures of the Pac-Man ballast cars with solar panels, but they're not the UP solar panels, and they're not the Herzogs. They're a little bit different, and so variation. Here we go. So it's a whole new one. So that's come out this weekend. The 857S, which is that top box low profile, is coming out. Yep. Also got the 884. Really kind of unique part is the 884. That's the Locomotive fuel additive tank.
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. Waco has a lot of these engines. It's not
their
DEF,
their HLCX units all have that on them.
Yeah, it's like a lubrication fuel burn improver. So it's a little bit more in depth. It's a little bit more in terms of, I think, like self-lubricating the engine and some other things. But yeah, it's I had to ask for that, and I got some good photos of it. So I thought, sure, it's a really modern part that it begs to be modeled. So the 884 is coming out, and then the last new piece is the utility posts markers, and so that's pretty cool. Those are based on prototype size. You get a pack of 12 for $8, and then to really make it even better, they're already kind of primed in white, so you can just finish them in white, and then you can paint the top, whatever color, red, orange, yellow, green, or blue, depending on what utility you're marking. And then in the kit, I give you like 18 decals. So if you want to model a gas line, a electric line, a water line, sewer line, I give you the decals for all of those, so you can make it as close to prototype as possible.
Wow. You got some other stuff here? Oh my God, we got, man.
Yeah, Ray,
this is crazy.
Yeah, Ray's. Yep. So we added a GPS to, Ray's car was here, and the crews called that the creeper because he has like one of those air tags in it. So anytime I moved it around the layout or even carried it, it would start chirping at me. And so
Are you
the crews
serious?
called. Yeah.
Did he
Yeah,
put in
so-
one of those Apple AirTags inside the car?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So anytime,
boy.
Oh,
so the crews were calling it the creeper because it was knowing what they were doing anytime they were moving around. So I added a GPS to the end. So
Yeah.
I put the brick on the end of it. So it definitely has a GPS along with a AirPod or a AirTag in it. So yes.
Ray is always watching. That's for sure. He's always watching. He knows. He
literally
knows where your car is. That's awesome.
He asked me. He said I remember he asked me. He messaged me. He said, "Hey, how's that car running for you?" I said, "Oh, it's running good." It was still sitting in the box. I'm like, I better move it to the train room because he's going to be watching.
He's got the map up.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
that's good
amazing.
stuff.
and then he had a picture of that communications tower.
Yeah.
BMLA did one many years ago. And I've met Craig Martin. He's an amazing modeler, had a great business. And honestly, for my scene at the Y, I need a communications tower. So I sat down, looked at some different plans online of just real generic, three-legged comms towers. And I thought, okay. And so that's going to be a cool offering to come in this fall. It's going to come in 10-foot sections. So it'll be a 50-foot kit. And literally they just stack.
Oh.
And so you can make it as tall as you want to. If you want to make it taller than 50 foot, we're going to offer extra pieces and parts. And of course, some antennas and microwaves will come with it as well. But that was really kind of that kind of came out of, well, I need it for my layout. And I guarantee if I need it, someone else needs it. And so that was really the first kind of test print of the tower. That's 4 sections you see there, but they just stack. And the feet from the bottom just nest into the top of the other one. So it is extremely easy to build. And it'll come with the base, a concrete base as well. So you'll get the whole piece in the kit. And I would expect that probably November, because it's going to be a lot of pieces to make and produce. But that's something that's very much on the horizon. It really kind of came out of, I sat down for 25 minutes and designed it and thought, I need this for me. And I thought, if it looks good enough, I'm sure others will want it as well. And so we're going to refine it a little bit, add some more, refine it a little bit more, add some more details to it to really make it pop. And I think we're going to be really close to prime time with a real simple communications tower that's actually with all that bracing, if you believe that, given its actual geometry, it's extremely strong. You can hold your fingers and really squeeze on it, and it flexes. So it's actually
triangles.
It's actually pretty strong for a 3D print. It's about 1 millimeter thick. So
it's really thin.
Now, I see you got a water tower in the background there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is going to sound, and I'm sorry if I asked or if you've been asked this before. In today's water towers, they're not just water towers anymore. They're communications arrays. As the most part, they have a lot of cellular stuff that goes on them. Are you thinking of possibly branching out away from, like, maybe doing something scenic that's not railroad related, that might be, oh yeah, you got a water, here's the cell phone array that goes on a water tower, or a cell phone array that goes on like that communications tower here, because a lot of the communications tower are very similar to that, so that they're not necessarily a railroad item, but a scenery item, in a modern scenery type of thing.
Yeah, really. So I've kind of sticked into a couple core lanes, right? So you have rail car support or rail car accessories, locomotive accessories, intermodal, EOT, and right of way. So really 5 major areas. And so my goal is to try to fit into those 5 areas. And so like even the utility marker posts are probably kind of on the edge of, well, it's in the right of way of a railroad. So, okay, it'd be added.
Right.
Other things depends on really on the ask. I'm really trying to stay to those core 5 areas because it helps with dealer product management, and even making sure that I'm staying within the core tasks of what we're doing. there's a lot of other great 3D printing companies out there, and a lot of times, I'm working right, or or what happens sometimes is you'll
You're
have a
not
modeler
helping,
ask
Andy.
you'll have a modeler ask for something, and then I've found that sometimes modelers ask multiple vendors to make the same thing at the same time, and they're like, "Hey, I'm releasing something," only to find that someone else released it, and I go back to that same name, like, oh, I don't want to copy someone else. And there's so many things to make
Right.
on the market that the 3D printers that are out there, Mini Prints, Wallace, and others, Kevin Tully with the steel mills, everyone's doing a really good job of trying to cohabitate and offer the modelers the options, right? And so
Right.
With that, I'm also trying to see, okay, what are other manufacturers making? Because if Kevin's kind of going down the line of like making track pans for like a grain elevator, I'm not gonna go dabble into that, because there's other things I should put my focus on too, because there's may come back to it, but we want to try to make sure it's all complementary, because it just offers more options and more things to the modeler. So we'll kind of see what the future holds in terms of that.
But those 3 areas that you're really focused on, there's a lot of opportunity there. This isn't just like a one and done type deal. Like you're gonna have new products coming out, indefinitely from the sounds of
Yes.
it.
So I'll give you, so exclusive first
Oh.
here on the second section, a super easy one. And I've seen these, I've been in yards, and Mike, you've probably seen them as well, but a 55-gallon plastic drum mounted at an angle so a locomotive engineer can throw their trash into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to that's coming soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like it's the simplest, goofiest, tiniest print, but it begs to be modeled, because they are in the yards, and that's how you keep your yards clean, right? So you can't keep a yard clean without a trash can, and one at an angle so the engineer or conductor can throw their crap at it is even better. So that will be coming here in the future.
And then you could put then you can scenic like all sorts of piles of little bags around it, because the guys miss and they have terrible aim, and nobody picks them up afterwards.
Or you stuff it full of, or you stuff it full of trash, and then you just have a pile inside, because no one's actually cleaned the trash can, because
nobody comes and picks up the garbage can. Yeah.
So
that's just a cool idea.
Yeah. So second section exclusive there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. So I'm doing like copper mining, those gondola lids. Oh my God, I'm gonna be broke as a joke here pretty quick. I mean, with Chris coming on the show and offering new cars, and now the copper mine going in on my layout, with the GON covers, this is gonna be a disaster for me.
And I have more Michigan Interstate cars in HO scale than I ever thought I'd ever own. And I mean, mine are back here someplace,
It's never too late, Mike. It's never too late.
Well, hey, speaking of that, see my segue? Do you see that?
I don't know.
That's a good segue. There's been rumors floating around that there might be a couple of new Mac transportation railroads in the future, potentially.
So they're on your Facebook page for the Michigan Interstate. You may or may not have
look at the grin on his face. Look at this.
I have a picture.
I could never lie.
I have a picture. He goes right to the juice there. So this was posted on your Facebook page. So what do we have going on here?
Yeah, so kind of branching out in the freelance, we kind of talked about a little bit at the beginning of the show. I think a different branch out in the freelance world is really going down the world of kind of having like a corporate multiple road under a freelance umbrella scheme. And so Michigan Interstate and Wisconsin Upper Michigan, really that kind of the first that came together in terms of really existence and survivability. And then that's expanded to two other roads, and I can tell you there's actually two other roads that I can't disclose tonight that are actually coming into the fold. So, and really, what I give Chris Palmieri, because he's like, he's like a freelance, like a
Right.
Michelangelo for freelance, right? That's Palmieri.
Right.
So on his NTO website page, he talks about franchise opportunities. Like, hey, if you wanted to model some of the Yazoo Valley, whatever, or part of the NTO, he actually provides like potential scenes and parts of the railroad you could model. And I thought that's actually a really good idea. Like, if you're really stuck on an idea, you don't have to maybe think about it, because it maybe the work's already been done for you. So it's not like it's like a prototype, but instead of a prototype, it's a freelance where all the work's been done. So Wisconsin, Michigan Interstate were a natural fit. Ironic, the two storylines really meshed, and before Bob and I even knew each other. And so that was a natural fit. And Bob's been a fantastic partner in terms of creative freedom. And, of course, he's right there involved in that creative process, making sure that, I am representing the best of Wisconsin and Upper Michigan as part of a MAC transportation brand. And then the two newest ads are the Texas and Coastal Bend. And that one's it's a full-on freelance. It's full-on white paper freelance down from the Corpus Christi, that part of the coastal bend of Texas. And really, that's a place that I love vacationing to. I love that part of Texas. The coastal region of Texas is gorgeous along the Gulf. And there's some really unique railroading where, there's brackish waters and palm trees and cuts and fills and stuff. So this is a great opportunity for me to kind of have another freelance exercise and expand out a little bit and kind of model it. So maybe eventually it could become a layout. I am working toward my MMR. And so one of the things I got to do is my civil work. So I'm working on a module that's actually going to represent Alice, Texas, and actually where the Texas and Coastal Bend will cross the KCSM or the KCS or CPKC. So I'm going to have opportunity to actually model a small 2x4 foot section of this railroad to not only do my, track lane, but also to bring it to life. I have a Whataburger in HO scale. I have a Texas.
That's awesome.
A 3D printed Whataburger. I have palm trees. I have a Texas DPS trooper car. So all the unique elements of Texas railroading in Texas. Really trying to bring them into that module to really give you that feel of South Texas, railroading along the coast. It's kind of arid, it's a really neat part of Texas, right? Exactly. And so this is I put this together to kind of really formalize what the network looks like, and really kind of help draw the image to everyone's mind. Okay, where is this Texas and Coastal Bend at? And really it kind of stretches from San Antonio down to Corpus. And really it's a lot of the old Texas and New Orleans routes, former SP routes that were abandoned probably some of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and up to the 90s. And it's kind of it's a mix of those things. And there's some UP line in there as well that's actually still active. But it's a fun short line in Texas that allows me to kind of model that South Texas-esque style of railroading. It's a different type of commodity, right? So you got rice, you got cotton are really big down here, right? So you're going to have, my cotton seed cars make those cotton top covers, right? So it's kind of a design for that. I've had asks for making Texas and Coastal Bend hopper cars for hauling rice, right? So it's just a different segment of business, and it allows me to kind of really, I'm always so focused on the paper and the grain in Michigan. Well, what is Texas? Well, it's a different type of railroading, right? The cars are more fadic from the sun and other things. Maybe there's a little bit more of an interaction with the Mexican railroads because of the proximity to the border. And so it adds a whole different dynamic of freelance operations. Not to mention the Texas Coastal Bend cars can wind up on the Michigan Interstate. They can also wind up, some of the locomotives. They're all kind of blended, because maybe one's going to shop, and while it's back on the Michigan Interstate, we're going to use it for a little bit. And so it lets that story kind of percolate around and really tie the families together.
That's
That paint
super
scheme looked really good on that GP40
Sure did.
2L. I mean,
Yeah, that
really,
was-
I hate to say it, it really kind of pops,
Yeah.
on that one. That one's really sharp. I do have a question about something regarding that picture.
Sure.
Andy, can you bring that
Yeah.
photo back up?
Which photo?
The photo of the power of the
Oh,
engine. That
hang
you
on
just
1
did.
minute here. Hang on 1 minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we got
just-
it's nothing but positive.
yeah.
Yeah. Here, I'll do a different one.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
no. I need the other one.
Need the other one?
I need the other one. That looks so sharp. Nope. Next one. There you go.
Okay.
Now, I see a little departure from normal with the Michigan Mac transportation lettering font with the Oregon joint lines. Now,
Mhm.
what is the reasoning behind that? Is it just that that's what he wanted, or is it because that is definitely not your standard Mac transportation lettering font?
Indeed, it's not. So, but what it is, but what it is I will give you this much: the circular herald has the same size scaling. In addition to the font width,
Yep.
Matt's awesome. The font width, while it's a different styling and it's more of italicized, the font width on the hood is exactly the same size. So it does still carry some of the same exact cheat lines, if you will, in terms of how
Yep.
they're decaled and lettered and everything. So getting to the Oregon joint line, that was really kind of it came out of nowhere really this year. So Dean Ferris, fantastic N scale modeler, is retiring from BNSF basically right now, and he's announced on his Oregon joint line that the layout will be coming down probably in the late fall. And I've enjoyed the last coming to being in here in Texas, I've gotten to have a lot of interaction with Dean and his operating crew, and anyone can tell you it's a fantastic N scale empire to operate on, and we're gonna really miss it. And so, as kind of a creative exercise about a year ago, I helped him design a logo. I said, well, the Oregon joint line, it's a compilation of the different railroads out there. I said, but what about having an actual brand for your railroad? And so, it's the John Day River, and I can't remember it's Sheep Rock actually on the mountain. So it's actually kind of a mountain and a river in the actual logo itself. I designed the logo for Dean for his Oregon joint line. So he's done some N scale cars with that, and I did a 60-foot box car a year ago in that Oregon joint line scheme. Really nice looking. And so when Dean announced he was going to go ahead and kind of hang it up on terms of his railroad, I thought this railroad's been too amazing, too inspirational to me to let go.
Yeah.
I think it deserves to continue to live on. And if I can, in Greg's way of, I guess maybe this is my coping mechanism, if you will, of losing it. But can I bring it to HO? Can I bring it to HO? And then, really taking, of course, that was in the 60s where he models. Okay, well, that joint line in Eastern Oregon, of course, after BNSF and UP do all the mergers, that line's, of course, going to be rationalized. Well, what does it look like now? And so it kind of ties to like a modern day Camas Prairie Railroad. And so while there's not really a massive through route anymore, I worked with him a little bit to kind of rationalize what it would look like, and the system map for the Oregon joint line. And then really that MP scheme is a really popular one on his layout. I thought, was it the Scally line up in, was it Minnesota has a railroad very much like this? And
right.
It has very much, but it's still unique Michigan Interstate, right? So it has the same color dips, the same Alaska yellow, and then, but there is a uniqueness to this that makes it very much Oregon joint line. There's also a red pinstripe that Sammy put that goes all around the engine. So it's a real subtle red striping. And so, the Oregon joint line is a little bit unique in terms of the scheme, but we wanted to preserve Dean's legacy or his layout and his brand that he's created over the years. And this was my way of doing it. So kind of
the Croy Valley Railroad is what the one in Minnesota that you're thinking of. Yeah.
Yep. So this one here is actually the 4080. So it's the same numbering series as all the other Michigan Interstate ST40s, and it's the city of Sylvies. So it's very much unique to it. So.
This one just came out of the blue. This wasn't a Mike or Andy instigator one. This is Ron Stanek, so hey, are we taking over the Seaboard Central? Tim Garland, he'll imagine he'd have something to say about that.
I'm sure Mr. Tim and by proxy Georgia Bigfoot I'd have a fight.
Yeah, right.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No, and that's really get back to what I've kind of done with this. It's really not been about trying to absorb identities and take them away. It's really been about trying to preserve these railroads into a modern, and really kind of give them a modern take and see what do they look like in the modern times. And that's the best part is what I've done with Oregon Joint Line and even Wisconsin, Upper Michigan. I have not impeded on the storyline that those layout owners had created. All I've done is really kind of taken the storyline and continued it beyond what they modeled, right? And so that's been the fun part of that. And the Texas Coastal Bend's just really been a creative exercise for me in terms of having my own Texas, short line, which, I mean, I live here, I should probably have one, have a Whataburger. I mean, it seems like it's fitting, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Right. And I keep Sammy Carlisle, I keep him like ridiculously busy painting things. I mean, it's like if I wasn't, doing these engines or something else, there's, some other engines right now in the booth. And all I can say is we got those and there's some stuff coming beyond that. So we're already talking about schemes you'll probably see as far as March of next year. So there's a lot of cool things in the pipeline with the Carco shops in Tulsa right now.
Now what you need to do is the Texas and Coastal Bend has to get some former Kansas City Southern GP 40-2Ls that actually had the dynamic brakes retrofitted back onto them, because those are just goofy looking. They're just weird looking, knowing that those never were built like that. To see those with the dynamic brake on them, they're just weird, but it's such a cool concept of a railroad, down there. And you're right. Like up here, we get cottonseed from down in Texas, up in this area all the time. And we used to get it in SP boxcars. So maybe there's a Texas and Coastal Bend and S-scale boxcar possibly
there we
in
are
the future
now.
coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to be around in 1984, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean,
So it really comes back to like I have some Golden West service boxcars that Rapido made. They're patched for Texas and Coastal Bend. They're pretty much worn out and faded out because of the sun, and they're extremely dusty from probably hauling bagged cement service out of Mexico. That's a very hard service on a rail car. It's usually kind of one of those things those rail cars do at the end of their life, right? Those cars will probably go to Mexico, and at some point they'll never return. And so, and actually to kind of lead into that, I will say that one of the railroads, I won't say too much, but one of these fictional railroads, we're going to really go kind of off the rails, no pun intended, and we're going south of the border with one of them.
Nice.
So we're going Federal Carril, if I can say it right. But we're going Mexican carrier. So that's gonna be a fun one to kind of. It's a whole nother type of railroading. You got a lot of freelance U.S. railroads, and I know there's an amazing. I don't want to take too much from it, but there's an amazing modeler on Instagram that has the Alta California Railroad, which is a freelance Californian Mexico railroad. Absolutely inspirational. And I think that's kind of a unique section of the freelance industry. You have a lot of Canadian, a lot of American, but is there a lot of Mexican-based freelance railroads? So it should be a really kind of a fun exercise, and we're getting to have a chance to probably engage some Mexican modelers in that process and some of the collaborative exercise. So it's gonna be really cool.
I think it's awesome.
Kind of a new NAFTA.
New KCS, right?
Yeah, the new KCS. Yep.
And then lastly,
that's awesome.
I think the other right there you go, rock guards. I got the Federal Sir engine, so I got to keep working on getting my rock guards. But the other railroad that's coming out here probably later this fall is actually not mine. It's actually another modern the same time specs, and it just really kind of came out as an opportunity where I think Mahler was like, hey, I need some idea. I need some ideas, some fresh ideas. And I said, well, how about if Mac Transportation became, went in and bidded to take over this railroad as the operator for 50 years. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're, helping with the timetable, track charts, operating plan, help design the scheme, right? The color scheme and everything. And of course, making sure that they're bought in with that alignment, but really help them kind of have a pre-packaged operation that they could then adopt for their railroad. And so maybe some of those mental blocks they were having on how I get this operation work out, we were able to kind of flesh out because we were able to apply Michigan Interstate or MAC transportation practices for the short line coming out. So really excited that I got to work with this individual and actually we get to bring it to life in modern times. So another current existing MAC property that will be out there.
Yeah,
and it's not the MAC, and it's not the Farland terminal. That I can guarantee. It's not the Farland terminal.
Not yet.
Not the McFarland terminal.
No, not the McFarland terminal. No. I mean, the beautiful thing, Greg, is about the Mac transportation is even when you look at that photo that Andy just had up and everything else like that, the family aspect of what you're doing and the maintaining the integrity of each individual railroad's identity by using the different color. You're not just throwing orange on something and calling it a railroad. It's every railroad has an identity, even though they have a family scheme. And that is really, really kind of cool. I mean, they still maintain their logos. They still maintain their identities, whereas it's just that they're brought into the family mix. So, I mean, now one question I do have is what about some retro paint schemes that haven't been painted yet? Is there anything coming down the line that might have something like that? I mean, is that a consideration? Because you can't paint everything all at once, right?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question. And the answer is the thought process is there. So many years ago, I had the first original GP30s on the Michigan Interstate, and they carried what I call the Phase 1 scheme. And it was like a light blue with white chevrons on the front and rear noses, and the logo was actually on the hood. It was a completely different setup. So those engines were, ironically, actually sold off to another freelance modeler, MacCrail. He bought those, and then they got sold to somebody else. And actually, long story short, one of those GP30s, like 6 years later, made it back to me because I bought a GP30 slug, and someone had done a slug. No joke. It was one of those was actually my original. It made like the 4 layout tour and returned it as a completely modified engine. But
that's awesome.
I mean, how cool was that, right? You could have thought about, it literally.
How does that happen?
Modified. I don't know. Other than I would say, I think social media has made the freelance modeling community smaller in terms of it's larger in terms of the scope, but I think in terms of if influence and like y'all, for example, right? Joe Bohan, Joe's on here. I mean, other individuals who have that like mindset. Those social media channels have allowed us, I think, to bounce more ideas and really, I think, grow as freelance modelers in terms of opportunity and really ideas and influence. And so I think because of that smaller world, if you will, even though it's larger, more railroads, but smaller world, I think that's how that engine literally made a 4 layout tour and returned, 6 years later with like 4 coats of paint on it, and deep under that 4 coats of paint was a Michigan Interstate blue. I mean, so it's like that was one of them. Yeah.
That's sweet.
That's awesome.
So going back to the question, I got way off tangent there. Sorry, but if you look at my old blog, there was I talked about the fleet back in the 80s. What was the fleet made up of? There was Alco Centuries, C425s, 424s. And I gotta be honest, I've been kind of itching, given some of their offerings of like Rapido and other manufacturers bringing some of those like the M420s. Gotta be honest, man, they're kind of
Kinda
calling
cool.
my name to get kind of need one, or maybe two. I don't know, maybe three. I know Sammy's probably sitting here right now just sweating because he's like, oh, that's gonna be more paint jobs for me to do. But yeah, I think maybe one for Christmas would be kind of cool. So you should probably get it on my list now. But I think it'd be kind of neat to going back in time and do that and have a retro, especially because if I go retro, then those things can go on to Bob Welke's 1982, layout, right? And so,
Right.
because before the Michigan Interstate, there was the St. Clair Northern or St. Clair Western and another freelance, I think like the MACRail Eastern or whatever it was, that kind of, these are all fictional, rail lines that goes back to the New York Central days and Grand Trunk days. Those kind of became the Michigan Interstate at some point. I mean, the story's there, but I have never designed the schemes. And that's, going back into that time frame, I'm going to have to do some research in terms of, I'm so used to modern schemes. That's a complete departure. So I'll probably be, leveraging it and leaning on people who maybe freelance back in that time to help with schemes, because it's definitely different than it is now. So,
yeah, I mean, and the thing is looking back at the map, you guys are definitely could be like horsepower partners. You know what I mean? And I mean, railroads do that all the time. I mean, you have a connecting railroad, they need horsepower. They just constantly are exchanging. You're constantly exchanging power to meet your needs and things like that. And back then, it was a horsepower by hour, power by hour type of thing. So, I mean, and with the way you guys are connected, that makes complete sense to have been partners even back then, So, yeah, that'd be really cool.
So you got that, you got the business train, so there's like a Michigan Interstate business train, but really it'll probably become a Mac transportation business train. And then the goal of that is it can then wander to different properties. So it can wander to Bob's Railroad.
Each car a different color.
Oh, cool.
A different color. Maybe it carries a different logo, because I'm kind of a sucker for like the stainless steel look. But maybe
I like
there's a lot you can do, right? In terms of maybe a logo, or maybe it's the name of the car is named after the railroad. There's a lot of things I think they're possible. So that's one of the things I'm also kind of kicking around is, a Mac transportation business car fleet, a small one.
The business cars are named after the railroad's owner.
The Welke.
Ooh, the Welke.
The Welke.
What did he
McComas. The Dorsch.
The great one. Great one. That was what he always told me to call him when I was over operating his layout. He's like, don't call me Bob. You got to call me the great one. So
great one. Yeah.
So whenever I call Bob, he always answers the phone. Yes, Your Excellency. I'm like,
well, it's kind of fitting to the theme of to the title of the show, right? I mean, you're just hostile takeover. You're going to rule us all pretty soon. It's just going to be the Genesee and Wyoming of freelance.
I mean, there's just so many railroads in the Midwest. Eventually, they're all going to got yellow noses. We're all going to have yellow noses on our layouts. Yeah. That's all there's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll resist. You got to resist.
I know.
That's how you do it. But no, it's fantastic. To see what you're doing, and then just kind of the story, I think, is what really, really makes it. Like, that's the one thing that it's obvious that, I'm just here with my pen and paper. I'm going to make up a new paint scheme and call it a railroad. Like, you actually thought about the operation and the different types of, back and forth between the companies and stuff. And that really adds that plausibility to it. Like, if you didn't know any better, you would have thought this is a real transportation company. And that's what I love. I absolutely love it.
So one time I'll say this, I was wearing my Michigan Interstate polo shirts. I wore it I was out for work, and I wore it to some event with some customer. They're like, Michigan Interstate, what railroad's that? I said, it's some class 2 in the Midwest.
And how'd that go?
That's cool. Oh, that's really cool. You got a card? No, I have a card. But, it's like, it just, I had not even thought about it. I had been traveling that day. I traveled. It's a really comfortable Adidas polo. thought, yeah, I'll wear it. And I went from traveling right to this event. It was a real casual event. And I thought I wore my freelance Michigan Interstate shirt to this event and didn't even think about it. So, it's kind of made me laugh, but it also goes back to the plausibility of someone actually would have thought that was a real railroad, right? And I mean, I've had people come over who are not even trained enthusiasts and just stare inside and go, like, where's this model from? I'm like, oh, my mind. I mean, it's Michigan, but it's really my creative, design. And people are just that whole freelance. The more people kind of understand the whole creative aspect and the exercise, people are really kind of get. I see the engine popping out. It's impressive, right? So yellow nose. I like that, Andy. Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
My noses have blue chevrons.
You got chevrons on them.
Got blue chevrons on my noses.
Just put
I'm pretty vanilla.
Yeah.
So
no, that's really cool. It's just it's fun. That's kind of like the Alan McClellan story, right? He would carry business cards, and stuff like that. So it's fun to actually have that happen to you on a work trip. So
that's cool. I love the business train idea.
Yeah, that, and then really, he's talking about the V&O. I was reading one of the book, right? That V&O story. I think I bought like 3 copies of it now.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about making a bedroom type layout for Brad. It was like the Dayton area with like a shop, and so that always resonated with me. And so if you follow the Michigan Interstate page, you've probably seen pictures of that central shop at Mount Pleasant that is actually being modeled like in a 2-foot by like 10 or 12-foot section in my garage, actually above my workbench. It's going to be a full-on car shop, a locomotive shop. It's going to be a full-on central system shop for the Michigan Interstate. So as engines are, going in for decoder work or they're going out for shop work, that's where they'll go. They'll go from the layout to the shop, and that's where they'll sit until they hit the bench for a decoder or repair or whatever it is. And it's just kind of a neat way to model that shop process, because so many times we get focused on the operations that we don't leave ever, unless you have the room, like a John Parker, he has the room. You don't really have the people usually forget the shops. And so it's kind of just a neat way to, not to mention, I picked up like the 3-bay monstrous one from Walthers at a train show, fully built for like $50. I'm like, I'll buy it now and figure out what I'm going to do with it later. Yes. It was painted, all the brickwork, that monstrous like long one with the short end and the high bay.
Yeah.
$50 at a train show. I'm like, I'll buy that now. I'll ask questions later and figure out what I'll do with it. But that's too good of a deal. That's too good of a deal to pass up. So
that is, man, I got to start hanging around with you. I never find deals like that. They must see me coming a mile away with the sucker written on the top of the head here. Ooh, it's double the price. So no, that's awesome. So it sounds like the Michigan Interstate and the family lines definitely have a future for a long time. Like this storyline can play out for ages and keep you always, I guess. I mean, you're never going to run out of stuff to do with your model railroad. That's crazy. That's amazing. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. Not to mention, like, we talked about originally, the railroad also stays modern plus or minus 5 years. So even if you were static on that and static on growing, future properties, now you have to maintain the railroads that you're keeping to that modern. If you're going the Eric Broman way of staying modern, you still have to refresh your fleet. And that actually requires a lot of work. You'd be surprised when you take all your cars and you document the age and dates and sizes, and you like put them in a pivot table. You go full on nerd in Excel. You're like, wow, I have way too many plain box cars. I need this sell. You sell, right? So, if you look in the yard and you're like, if I can count more than 6 box cars, there's probably too many, because that's just not the blend. It's covered hoppers, it's gondolas, it's other cars you see now a lot more. Just given the mix change, right? And so if you do see a box car, it's probably going to be a 60-foot plate F or a Home Shops Trinity 50-foot high cube. So Those cars, by the way, are sold out. They sold out. Chris shipped the last one today. So those are going.
That's awesome.
All they're gone.
They are so good.
They are
so good.
amazing car.
I got 2 of the Michigan Interstate ones here on the layout. So yeah, and then the MACRail and a Brownsville and Ashland.
Yeah, I got one myself. Each of them. Yeah, and Prairie Shells did an amazing job on those cars. They turned out so well. I was really impressed with them, and it's a neat add to the fleet in terms of having that modern box car, if you will. So
yeah, it is. It's really good. I love it. I love them. So yeah, so you're gonna be busy for a long time then. Not only with, I mean, it's just gonna be the constant Greg looking like Ben Affleck, like, oh man, the meme. I'm gonna pepper you every now and then with that. We just throw this out, throw that meme out. It's like, oh, Greg's releasing a new product this month, and there he is. So, but yeah, and then MACRail too, right? So it's been really awesome to see the company grow over the last few years, right? And if you guys haven't checked him out, I've put the link to his Facebook page. I've put the link to his website in the chat tonight. I also have links to his contacts in the show notes as well, so you can go to the description of tonight's show in YouTube, or if you hear this after the fact, and the links there, go to MACRail and check out the goods that he has there. And I mean, the prices are really, really good for the quality that you're getting. I mean, I was looking at the prices, I'm like, so yeah, it's good stuff. And there's a bunch of people on here tonight talking about the quality and the detail that comes with it. So I think it's a no-brainer. Go see MACRail, or if they're at a show, right? Go see them there too.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Buy them a hot dog.
Get there early.
Well,
get there early.
Yeah, no kidding.
Not trying to draw this out, but you laugh. That one year, a lot of times, like at Amherst, if you don't eat before you go, you're not going to get 4 or 5 hours. I mean, I remember we had Chris and I walked and we had Dunkin' Donuts, and no joke. I mean, I had like a little sandwich, and we had a line before the show opened at Amherst. We had a line at our tables, like 15 people deep. And so, of course, you want to take care of those customers because they're there. So, cash. I love green. Green's great. And so, took care of business. And next thing I know, it's 11:45 a.m. and my sandwich is still sitting there because we had not stopped working the entire time. And I think any vendor or dealer that goes to Amherst can tell you the same story, where it's like, yeah, I had to pee, but I got to hold it.
Oh man,
I remember Ray Arnott saying something about that where he just never stopped. It was just constant people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Man, I would not be good there. I'd have to have a backup, because if I have one beer or a little bit of water, I'm in the bathroom every 5 minutes. So, oh man, I couldn't do her. Oh, that's great. And then I also put just to bring her back. I also put in where you can find the Michigan Interstate as well in the show notes, and peppered that into the chat as well tonight. So I think what we'll do here is, Mike, we're going to do the awkward hand the microphone over to Mike part of the show. So
it's going to be awkward this time.
Yeah, it's going to be awkward as hell. So how does so let's hear your thoughts here as we bring the train into the station here tonight.
Oh man, Greg, I tell you what, it's just I can't say enough about how impressed I am with not just with the Michigan Interstate stuff. Honestly, I mean that's awesome. But the MACRail, and having seen in person the number of people that come, make a beeline for your booth when we were in Denver, and the constant rotation of people. I came over, honestly, Andy, by him and Chris, about 4 or 5 different times. I just had to walk past and walk away because they're 2-3 people deep. And I'm sitting here going, no, I'm not. It would be, I'd walk by, come back a half hour later. There's still people there. There's constant people are so interested in what you've been doing. And you're doing things that really modern modelers really need. You know, you have a lot of the things that modern modelers want and need. And I applaud that. I had models the 70s and 80s. I don't know, just from working, I see all of this stuff, you know, and when I see it and I go to MACRail, I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that yesterday. I saw this today. I know what that is. I know it. And it looks just like it does in real life. Absolutely amazing. If you do such good work, and I thank you very, very much for everything that you're doing. You're a great ambassador for the hobby as well. And it's just it's a lot of fun to hang out with you and to talk with you, and you know, I can't wait to do that. We got to do this a lot more often. This is too cool, man. It really honestly is.
Well, I really appreciate the kind words, and you know, to the customers, you know, the reason I do this is for the modelers, and I enjoy the engagement and the conversations, and sometimes they're long, but that connection, right? That connection, that friendship, and that engagement with our customers is so important. And we want to make sure we're there supporting the hobby and continue to move everything forward. So yeah, thank you for the words. Really appreciate it.
It's definitely heartfelt and seriously meant. I can't wait until Denver next year. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I think I'm sold on it.
Yeah, that Italian place was off the hook.
Yeah, it was. That was really well. Yeah, we can't go too much past that. Let's just say the food was good. That's all I'm going to say. The rest is for the After Dark program.
Yeah, which, yeah, the second section After Dark. Oh man. So Greg, I'll leave the final thoughts with you before we tie down for tonight. So what'd you think of the second section experience here, and what do you want to tell the listeners before we sign off?
Well, first off, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share not only the Mac transportation and the Michigan Interstate, but the MACRail stories and experiences. And I think really to the modelers, you know, take it one step at a time. Complete that project. And, you know, that's what we kind of do on the MACRail side. But I tell folks, if you're discouraged, take a step you can get completed, and then keep moving forward one step at a time. Sometimes you're going to have a wall. You're going to be like, I don't want to do this. But then have another project you can pivot to and keep moving forward in the hobby. It's a great hobby. Absolutely love it. And it's been a real pleasure having a chance to share all this with you all tonight.
Yeah, here to that. And Greg, I think this is going to be a standing invitation. So anytime that you want to come back, tell your story, or just some of the antics that, you know, maybe we have an After Dark show, and then you discuss the antics that happened at the Italian restaurant. That could be a part 2, and maybe a story to ask to ask you when people see you at the shows. But I do want to thank you for taking the time to come on as well, because I know you're busy getting ready for everything. Not only just your day job, but then, you know, the filling orders and all those types of things as well as an entrepreneur. So I just can't imagine. I know when we have to fill merch orders, you know, I just like, oh my God, it's never going to end. So I have no idea, but that's how I feel. So anyways, thanks again for coming on the show tonight. And again, if you're joining late, make sure you check out the description. We have MACRail's website in there as well. And then we also have the Facebook for the Michigan Interstate St. Clair subdivision out there as well. Make sure you check that out and see some of Greg's fantastic modeling as he, now I guess you're going for your MMR. So Be fun to watch that journey.
Go for it, man.
Yeah, good luck on that. So it says here, I just have this last one here. It says, looking forward to placing my next order. I hear working EOTs are coming. Is that right? Working EOTs?
It is right. So they are, and so take the plug here. So they are the current EOTs, the Universal Fit EOTs, and we have partnered with a vendor who works with micro LEDs, and they're installing the LEDs and wiring them in the EOT. So we're working toward that. I've been quite delayed in getting them actually to the vendor to retrofit. So we're hoping to have them, if we can, for Amherst. I don't want to commit for their time because they have a lot on their plate, but we'll probably be here early 25 before we get them out. And then we are also trying to time that with a vendor who's going to offer a flashing circuit, something that could be used for dead rail, or so you can put in your car, right? A simple circuit that can either work off of battery or track power that you can put in your car and easily hook up your EOT that's already wired, plug it into. It's kind of like a real plug and play, if you will. And so we want to make sure that the timing of that release kind of matches with that product. And so we're still working through that. So a little bit delayed, but 2025, I do expect those working EOTs will be coming out. Yes.
I think we should have you back on the show to talk about those for sure.
It'd be really, really pretty cool. So, and the vendor, they already do a lot of really neat things with LEDs. So we partnered with the best in the business to hopefully bring it to light. No joke.
That's awesome.
That's sweet. That is awesome. Really cool. Todd, thanks for the little note there to bring that question up right before we close up shop. But yes, so make sure you go check out Greg and MACRail and the Michigan Interstate. And if you want to catch more of the Second Section podcast, be sure to check us out on Facebook as well. We got a little Facebook group there. Great community full of fantastic modelers coming together, sharing all sorts of stuff, all model railroading related, and coming together to help each other out with modeling problems, all that fun stuff. So it's a great community to be a part of. And then again, you want to support the Second Section podcast, easy way, just hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a dime, and you get to keep up with all of the goings on and when our shows come out, those types of things. Easy peasy. So make sure you guys subscribe to the show. So next, I didn't tell Mike this, but we have next show's scheduled for the 12th of September. Just confirmed today, our good friend Mike Rose will be coming back on the show.
Oh, so, is that well, wait a minute. We still have to get him his shirt and his smoking jacket and all of that.
He said he's been on now, I think, for the 5th time. So he's going to punch the ticket for the free sub sandwich. I think that's what he's going to opt for.
There we go.
So we're going to have Mike Rose on the 12th. And then we got some other guests that we're looking to have on here, September, October timeframe. Some new faces and maybe an old favorite coming back. So look forward to keeping up on our schedule here. So yeah, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a beat from the Second Section. So on behalf of Greg, Mike, myself, thank you, Section Crew, tonight for all the great comments and all of the great banter in the chat tonight. We will see you all in 2 weeks. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Hey.